The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and destiny. For 1,000 generations, the Jedi had served as guardians of peace, their understanding of this mystical field unmatched throughout known space. But the Force, for all its power, had never encountered anything quite like Minovsky physics. And when an experimental fusion reactor collided with a hyperspace anomaly above the Christophsis system, reality itself screamed. The White Base had been evacuating civilians from Side 7 when Char Aznabul's forces struck without warning. Amuro Ray, barely 16 standard years old, had launched in the RX-78-2 Gundam for what he thought would be another desperate defense against Zeon mobile suits. The beam rifle had just destroyed a Zaku 2 when space itself inverted. Purple lightning, wrong, utterly wrong in color and behavior, had erupted from nowhere, wrapping around the Gundam like serpents of pure energy. Amuro's Newtype senses shrieked warnings half a second before his instruments died, before the stars twisted into configurations he didn't recognize, before everything went white. When his systems rebooted, the stars were different. Wrong constellations. Wrong radiation signatures. And directly below him, a planet under siege by warships that looked nothing like anything the Earth Federation or Zeon had ever constructed. Amuro's hands flew across the controls, checking systems through pure muscle memory. Gundam, operational. Minovsky reactor at 95%. Beam rifle charge, 70%. Shield intact. His voice was steady despite the ice flooding his veins. But where the hell am I? The tactical display showed massive capital ships engaged in battle over a desert world. Wedge-shaped vessels exchanged streams of what looked like energy weapons, but the bolts moved far too slowly to be particle beams. Despite their primitive thruster configurations. And below, on the planet's surface, a ground war raged between forces that seemed impossibly mismatched. Humanoid machines that walked upright like mobile suits, but crude, slow, and apparently piloted by very simple AI, facing off against what appeared to be clone soldiers. "This isn't our universe," Amuro whispered, his Newtype instincts flooding him with certainty. The sensation of space around him felt different, thicker somehow, as if reality itself had a texture here that it lacked back home. Information poured into his consciousness without explanation. Distance, velocity, intent, all amplified beyond what even his enhanced spatial awareness should provide. A proximity alarm shrieked. 6 of the small fighters broke formation from the larger battle, angling toward him. Amuro's hand moved to the beam rifle's controls, then hesitated. They might not be enemies. They might not even understand what they were looking at. The Gundam silhouette against the stars would be completely alien to these forces, 18 meters of white armor and revolutionary engineering that shouldn't exist in whatever reality he'd stumbled into. His radio crackled with static, then a voice pushed through on a frequency his systems shouldn't be able to receive. "Unknown contact, this is Gold, leader of the Republic Navy. You are in restricted military space above Christophsis. Identify yourself immediately or be classified as hostile." Republic? Christophsis? The words meant nothing. Amuro opened a channel, praying the translation protocols in the Gundam's computer could adapt. "This is Lieutenant Amuro Ray of the Earth Federation Forces, Mobile Suit RX-78-2 Gundam. I'm not sure how I arrived here. Requesting information on current location and situation." Silence. Then, say again. "You're breaking up. Did you say Earth Federation? There's no such government in Republic records. And what in the blazes is a mobile suit?" Before Amuro could respond, the Gundam's threat detector lit up like a supernova. Energy signatures, massive ones, were converging on his position from the planet below. Not the clumsy walkers, but something faster, more aggressive. Launch signatures. Missiles. No, the thermal bloom was wrong. These were. The first turbolaser bolt missed the Gundam by 30 meters, close enough that Amuro's Newtype senses screamed the danger before his instruments registered it. Pure instinct took over. His hands moved, thrusters fired, and the RX-78-2 rolled through a 90-degree axis that should have been impossible for something so massive. The second bolt passed through space where he'd been floating a heartbeat before. Hostile action detected. Gold Leader's voice crackled. All wings, unknown contact is under fire from Separatist forces. Unknown contact, recommend you accept Republic escort to. A new voice cut through the channel, mechanical and devoid of warmth. Unidentified war machine, power down your systems and prepare for boarding. By order of the Separatist Alliance, you and your technology are to be secured for analysis. Resistance will result in your destruction. Amuro's jaw clenched. Different universe. Same war. Same choice, surrender your weapon or fight. The Gundam's beam rifle came up, its barrel tracking the source of the turbolaser fire, a spherical ship covered in weapon emplacements, flanked by vulture droids already launching from its hangar. Amuro's Newtype awareness expanded, touching the minds piloting those droids and finding nothing. No fear. No hesitation. Just cold programming and the intent to kill. I didn't survive the 1-year war to get scrapped by drones in whatever universe this is, Amuro muttered. His finger hovered over the trigger. Gundam, engaging hostile forces. The beam rifle spoke once, and the galaxy far, far away learned what Mobile Suit Gundam truly meant. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The beam rifle's discharge illuminated the void like a miniature star going supernova. Pink particle energy, the signature of Minovsky-based weapons technology, lanced across 3 kilometers of space in a microsecond and struck the Separatist Munificent-class frigate dead center. The ship's ray shields, designed to disperse turbolaser impacts across their entire surface, had no protocol for a weapon that delivered its payload in a single concentrated pulse. The beam punched through the shield as if it didn't exist, cored through 12 meters of durasteel hull plating, and detonated the forward magazine. The frigate broke in half, secondary explosions rippling down its spine as atmosphere vented in brilliant white plumes. Aboard his Eta-2 Actis interceptor, Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker felt the shock wave through the Force before his sensors registered the explosion. His blue eyes widened behind his cockpit canopy. What the... R2, did you see that? One shot. One shot and that frigate is space debris. The astromech droid beeped frantically, its tone mixing amazement with alarm. I know it's not one of ours. Anakin yanked his control stick, breaking formation to angle toward the unknown contact. Gold Leader, this is Skywalker. I'm moving to intercept. That weapon signature doesn't match anything in Republic or Separatist arsenals. General, recommend caution, Gold Leader responded. Whatever that thing is, it just proved it can crack capital ship armor with a single. 20 vulture droids opened fire simultaneously, crimson laser bolts converging on the white mobile suit from multiple vectors. Amuro's Newtype senses painted the attack pattern in his mind half a second before it happened, a gift of spatial awareness that had kept him alive through dozens of battles against Zeon's finest. The Gundam twisted through impossible angles, vernier thrusters firing in precisely calculated bursts. Luna titanium armor deflected 3 hits that couldn't be dodged, the impacts barely scorching the paint. Amuro's hands moved across controls that had become extensions of his own body. The beam rifle tracked, fired, tracked, fired. 2 vulture droids evaporated in pink light. The remaining 18 broke formation, their droid brains calculating that standard attack patterns were inadequate against this target. Adaptive combat programming, Amuro noted, impressed despite himself. More sophisticated than Zeon's mobile dolls, but still predictable. The Gundam's left hand drew a beam saber from its backpack, the yellow energy blade igniting with a snap hiss that resonated across multiple frequencies. Let's see how your programming handles close combat. He fired the main thrusters. The RX-78-2 accelerated with a violence that would have pulped an unprotected pilot. Amuro's normal suit's pressure systems compensated, keeping him conscious as G-forces spiked. The Gundam closed the distance to the nearest Vulture droid formation in 3 seconds, combat speed that Clone Wars-era fighters simply weren't designed to counter. The beam saber swept through the first droid, bisecting it with contemptuous ease. Amuro rotated on the mobile suit's axis, shield deflecting return fire as the saber found a second target, then a third. Impossible, breathed Ahsoka Tano from her own interceptor, her Padawan braid swaying as she stared at the tactical display. The Force sang with warning around the unknown machine, but not the dark corruption of Sith technology. Something else. Something that resonated with danger and precision in equal measure. Master Anakin, that machine is moving like it's anticipating the droid's attack patterns before they execute them. I noticed, snips. Anakin's fighter screamed past the battle, his own connection to the Force letting him track the white mobile suit's movements with unnatural clarity. He reached out with his feelings, trying to sense the pilot within that armored shell, and found confusion. Fear, yes, but controlled. And underneath, a sense of awareness that felt almost like touching another Force-sensitive, but wrong somehow. Fragmented. There's definitely someone alive in there. And whoever they are, they're scared but they're not panicking. The last Vulture droid attempted to break away. Amuro's Newtype instincts tracked its trajectory, calculated intercept, and his finger squeezed the trigger. The beam rifle spoke once more, and the droid became an expanding cloud of superheated debris. Silence fell across the immediate combat zone. The larger battle continued to rage around Christophsis, the Separatist blockade exchanging fire with Republic cruisers, clone trooper gunships descending toward the planet's surface. But in this small pocket of space, every pilot found themselves staring at the white mobile suit hanging motionless against the stars, its beam saber still active, its single camera eye glowing with crimson light. Unknown contact, Anakin opened a direct channel, his voice carrying the authority of a Jedi general but carefully keeping the tone non-threatening. I'm General Anakin Skywalker of the Galactic Republic. You just defended yourself against Separatist forces, which technically makes us allies. How about we continue this conversation somewhere that isn't an active war zone? Inside the Gundam's cockpit, Amuro's breathing was controlled but rapid. His Newtype senses screamed with information overload, too many ships, too many weapons, too many unknown variables. And underneath it all, that strange thickness to space itself, as if reality here operated on frequencies his mind could detect but not fully understand. The voice calling itself Skywalker felt different. When it spoke, Amuro's spatial awareness pinged with resonance, like recognizing another Newtype but through a distorted filter. Force-sensitive, his instincts whispered, though he had no frame of reference for what that meant. General Skywalker, Amuro responded carefully, his eyes scanning tactical displays that showed at least 4 more Separatist ships moving to intercept. I don't know who the Separatists are. I don't know who the Republic is. 6 minutes ago, I was fighting in a completely different war in what I'm increasingly certain was a completely different universe. But if those ships are going to keep shooting at me, I need to know, are you offering shelter or just a different kind of cage? Anakin blinked. Different universe? That was, actually, given some of the things he'd seen the Force do, maybe not as impossible as it sounded. Shelter, he said firmly. My word as a Jedi Knight. Come with us to the surface. We'll get you sorted out, figure out what happened, and make sure nobody else takes shots at you. Deal? Amuro's hand hovered over the controls. Every instinct screamed not to trust anyone in an unknown situation. But he was alone, in an unfamiliar universe, with limited ammunition and no way home visible. And the voice on the other end of that transmission felt genuine. Honest in a way that reminded him of Bright Noah's gruff sincerity. Deal, Amuro said quietly. But General Skywalker, if this is a trap, you'll learn very quickly why the White Devil of Side 7 survived the 1-year war. Anakin grinned despite the tension. He liked this pilot already. Fair enough. Gold Squadron, form up. We're escorting our new friend down to the forward base. And somebody get Master Kenobi on the comm, he's going to want to see this. The RX-78-2 Gundam, its beam saber deactivating with a snap hiss, fell into formation with the Republic fighters. As they began their descent toward Christophsis, Amuro caught his first clear view of the planet below, crystal formations jutting from desert landscapes, cities under siege, and a war that looked disturbingly familiar despite the alien technology. Above them, Count Dooku stood aboard his solar sailor's observation deck, watching the tactical reports with interest that bordered on fascination. A weapon that destroys capital ships with single shots, he mused, his elegant voice carrying dark satisfaction. And a pilot who moves with precognitive awareness yet shows no sign of force training. How very intriguing. The Clone Wars had just become infinitely more complicated. The Republic forward base on Christophsis occupied what had once been a commercial district, now transformed into a makeshift military compound surrounded by ray shields and clone trooper patrols. As the RX-78-2 Gundam descended on pillar of thruster fire, every soldier on the ground stopped what they were doing to stare. The mobile suit towered over their AT walkers like an adult standing over children's toys, sleeker, more humanoid, and radiating an aura of barely contained lethality. Amuro set the Gundam down in the designated landing zone with practiced precision, the 18-meter machine's feet barely disturbing the crystalline sand. His hands moved through shutdown procedures, powering down the beam rifle but keeping the Minovsky reactor hot. If this went wrong, he wanted to be able to launch in under 30 seconds. Through the cockpit canopy, he watched a welcoming committee approach. The young man calling himself Anakin Skywalker walked with confident strides, flanked by an older man with a beard whose bearing screamed military veteran, and a young Togruta female whose headtails marked her as decidedly non-human. Behind them, clone troopers maintained a respectful but cautious perimeter, their weapons lowered but ready. Amuro took a breath, unsealed the cockpit, and climbed down the Gundam's access ladder. His white normal suit and helmet marked him as clearly military, though the design would be utterly foreign to anyone in this galaxy. When his boots hit the ground, he found himself surrounded by curious stares and the distinctive hum of energy shields maintaining the base's perimeter. "Welcome to Christophsis," Anakin said, extending a hand. Up close, Amuro could see he was young, maybe early 20s, with a mechanical right hand that gleamed in the system's twin suns. "I'm Anakin Skywalker. This is my former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and my Padawan, Ahsoka Tano." Amuro shook the offered hand, noting the strength in Skywalker's grip. "Amuro Ray. And I apologize for the dramatic entrance. Where I come from, being shot at usually means someone's trying to kill you." "A reasonable assumption," Obi-Wan observed dryly, his eyes studying the Gundam with barely concealed fascination. "Though I must say, your response was rather definitive. That frigate you destroyed had a crew of 200. The words hit Amuro like a physical blow. 200. He destroyed Zeon mobile suits by the dozens, but those were single-pilot craft. He'd always known his actions had consequences, but hearing the number stated so plainly made his stomach clench. If I'd known there was a way to disable rather than destroy, I would have taken it. But they were firing with lethal intent, and I had seconds to respond." "War rarely gives us time for perfect choices," Obi-Wan said, his tone gentler. "I'm not condemning you, Lieutenant Ray. Merely establishing that you understand the gravity of the situation. You've entered a conflict between the Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems, what we call the Separatists. A war that's already consumed thousands of worlds and millions of lives." Ahsoka stepped forward, her blue eyes bright with curiosity. "That machine, the Gundam, you called it? I've never seen anything move like that." "It was predicting the Vulture droid's attack patterns like you could read their programming." "Not programming," Amuro corrected quietly. "Spatial awareness. Where I come from, certain individuals develop enhanced perception, we call it being a Newtype. It's like, feeling the shape of space around you, sensing objects and intentions before your eyes register them. It kept me alive during the 1-year war. Anakin and Obi-Wan exchanged glances. The description was uncomfortably similar to Force sensitivity, yet when Anakin reached out through the Force to touch Amuro's presence, he felt something fragmented, like a reflection in broken glass. Present but distorted. Powerful but operating on wavelengths the Force didn't quite encompass. This 1-year war, Obi-Wan said carefully. Tell us about it. So Amuro did. Standing in the shadow of his Gundam, he explained Side 7, the Principality of Zeon, the Earth Federation, and a conflict born from colonial independence movements that had spiraled into total war. He described Minovsky particles, which rendered radar useless and forced combat back into visual range. He spoke of mobile suits revolutionizing warfare, and of Newtypes, the next evolution of human consciousness, born from humanity's expansion into space. And then, during an engagement with Zeon forces, something happened, Amuro finished. Space itself tore open. Purple lightning that my sensors couldn't classify. And suddenly I was here, in your universe, in the middle of your war. Hyperspace anomaly, perhaps, Obi-Wan mused. Though I've never heard of one causing dimensional transference. The Force works in mysterious ways, but this, he trailed off, stroking his beard thoughtfully. The Jedi Council will want to examine both you and your machine, Anakin said, and Amuro's hand instinctively moved toward the beam pistol holstered at his hip. Anakin noticed, raising his hands peacefully. Not as prisoners. As guests. You've demonstrated abilities similar to Force sensitivity, and that Gundam of yours represents technology we've never encountered. The Council will have questions. Questions I might not want to answer, Amuro replied evenly. With respect, General Skywalker, I didn't survive a year of war by handing over military secrets to the first authority figure who asked nicely. I need to understand this situation before I commit to anything. A reasonable position, Obi-Wan acknowledged. Though I should point out that you're currently standing on a Republic base, surrounded by clone troopers, with limited ammunition and no clear path home. Not precisely a strong negotiating position. Master. Ahsoka protested. He's right, Amuro said quietly. His Newtype senses counted the soldiers arrayed around the perimeter, calculated firing angles, assessed threat levels. He could reach the Gundam's cockpit in 12 seconds. Launch in 30. But where would he go? This wasn't his universe. He had no allies, no supply lines, no understanding of the strategic situation. I'm effectively stranded in a war I don't understand, piloting the last remaining prototype of its kind. The Gundam's technology is revolutionary, which means every faction in this war will want it. The question is, which faction can I trust not to simply disassemble me and my mobile suit for study? The Republic stands for democracy and freedom, Anakin said firmly. We're fighting the Separatists because they want to break away from the democratic process, and they're using droid armies to subjugate worlds that don't fall in line. We're the good guys, Amuro. Something in Amuro's expression must have shown skepticism, because Obi-Wan sighed. My former Padawan has a tendency toward simplification. The truth is more complex. The Separatists have legitimate grievances about Republic taxation and corruption. But their solution, military conquest under corporate control, is unacceptable. And their reliance on battle droids means they treat life as cheaply as we treat Tibanna gas. Clone troopers, Amuro said softly, looking at the identical soldiers around the perimeter. You grow soldiers. Design them for war. Is that so different from building droids? The silence was deafening. Anakin's jaw clenched. Obi-Wan's expression became carefully neutral. Ahsoka looked between her masters, clearly uncomfortable. The clones are people, Anakin said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. They think, they feel, they choose. They're not droids. I didn't say they were, Amuro replied, meeting Anakin's gaze steadily. But they were created specifically for war, weren't they? Engineered for combat before they had any choice in the matter. In my universe, we'd call that a war crime. You've been here less than an hour and you're already judging our methods. Anakin's hand moved toward his lightsaber, not drawing but clearly telegraphing the threat. Skywalker, Obi-Wan's voice cut through the tension like a vibroblade. Stand down. The lieutenant is asking questions any intelligent soldier would ask when encountering a foreign military. He's not attacking us. He's trying to understand. Amuro kept his hands visible and non-threatening, but his Newtype awareness tracked every movement in Anakin's body language. The young general was passionate, possibly volatile. Dangerous in the way Char Aznable had been dangerous, brilliant but driven by emotions that could override tactical judgment. I apologize if I offended, Amuro said carefully. I'm not your enemy, General Skywalker. But I'm also not going to blindly ally myself with forces I don't understand. I've seen what happens when soldiers stop asking questions and just follow orders. It's how the Federation justified colony suppression. It's how Zeon justified dropping a colony on Earth and killing 3 billion people in a single day. The sheer horror of that number made even Obi-Wan pale. 3 billion. Operation British, Amuro confirmed quietly. First major action of the 1-year war. They dropped the island Ifish colony straight into Sydney, Australia. The impact winter lasted 6 months. When you've seen that level of atrocity, you learn to be careful about whose war you're fighting. Ahsoka stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. We're not perfect. The Republic has problems, corruption, bureaucracy, systems that fail people every day. But we're trying to hold civilization together. The Separatists would tear it all down, and people would suffer. That's why we fight. Amuro studied the young Padawan, seeing sincerity in her eyes that reminded him painfully of Frau Bao, another young person forced to grow up too fast by war. I believe that you believe that, he said finally. And maybe you're right. But before I commit the Gundam to this conflict, I need more than passionate speeches. I need information. Strategic assessments. An understanding of what I'd actually be fighting for. Then let us provide that, Obi-Wan proposed. Come to Coruscant. Present your situation to the Jedi Council. They're wise, far-seeing, and have guided the Republic for 1,000 generations. If anyone can help you find a path home, or at least help you understand this galaxy well enough to make an informed choice, it's them. Amuro looked up at his Gundam, the white mobile suit standing silent sentinel against alien skies. The last RX-78-2 in this universe. Perhaps the last link to his home. Bright Noah would tell him to gather intelligence before committing. Sayla would counsel caution. But standing here, surrounded by soldiers in a war he didn't choose, Amuro realized he had exactly one viable option. Coruscant, he agreed. I'll meet with your council. But the Gundam stays armed, and I maintain full control. Those are my conditions. Agreed, Obi-Wan said before Anakin could object. Though I suspect the council will have conditions of their own. They tend to be particular about unknown weapons platforms landing on the capital world. Then I guess we'll see if their wisdom lives up to your reputation, Amuro replied. He turned back toward the Gundam's access ladder, then paused. General Skywalker. I apologize if my questions angered you. Where I come from, blind loyalty got millions killed. I won't make that mistake again. Anakin's expression softened slightly. And where I come from, hesitation costs lives. But, maybe you have a point. About asking questions. He offered a slight smile. Try not to shoot down any more frigates before we reach Coruscant, all right? The paperwork is murder. Despite everything, Amuro found himself almost smiling back. I'll do my best. No promises if someone shoots first, though. As Amuro climbed back into his Gundam to prepare for transport, Obi-Wan pulled Anakin aside. "That pilot concerns me. Because he questions authority. Because he's right to," Obi-Wan said quietly. "And because I reached out through the Force while he spoke. That Newtype awareness of his. It resonates with the Force but operates independently of it. He's touching something we don't fully understand. And his machine," he glanced up at the Gundam. "That weapon could change the balance of this entire war. So we bring him to Coruscant," Anakin said. "Let the Council handle it." "Indeed." But Obi-Wan's expression remained troubled. Somewhere on the edge of his Force awareness, he felt a dark presence taking interest, a shadow that watched from across the stars with ancient, calculating hunger. Count Dooku had already dispatched 3 messages. One to General Grievous. One to the Techno-Union. And one to his master, Lord Sidious, informing him of a discovery that could reshape the galaxy. The Clone Wars had found its most dangerous variable. General Grievous stalked the bridge of his flagship, the Invisible Hand, with predatory focus. His mechanical body, a twisted fusion of Kaleesh organs and droid components, towered over the tactical hologram displaying Christophsis. For lightsabers hung from his belt, trophies from Jedi he'd killed personally. But the weapon that interested him now didn't belong to any Force wielder. "Magnify Section 77 Alpha, Grievous commanded, his voice a mechanized rasp. The hologram zoomed to show the white mobile suit standing in the Republic base. Sensor data scrolled across adjacent displays, mass readings, energy signatures, weapon capabilities estimated from the frigate destruction. This Gundam. Analysis. A tactical droid stepped forward, its photoreceptors gleaming. Unknown configuration, General. Hull composition resists standard scanning protocols, possibly neutronium alloy or equivalent density material. Primary weapon generates particle beam output exceeding turbolaser yields in concentrated bursts. Estimated armor penetration, sufficient to compromise capital ship hulls. Propulsion system unknown but demonstrates atmospheric and space capability with superior maneuverability to standard starfighters. In other words, Grievous said with something that might have been satisfaction, a weapon worth acquiring. Count Dooku has ordered you to capture the machine intact, the tactical droid confirmed. The Techno-Union offers 12 million credits for the technology. Watambor himself has guaranteed immediate production of similar units if we can secure the schematics. Grievous turned to the viewport, watching Republic transports prepare for departure. They would take the Gundam to Coruscant, deep into Republic space, protected by Jedi and clone armies. A difficult target. But not impossible. He'd killed Jedi in their own temple. He'd raided Coruscant itself. One more mobile suit, however advanced, would fall to superior strategy and overwhelming force. Prepare Assault Fleet Gamma 7, Grievous ordered. We intercept them in the Balmorra run. The hyperspace route has narrow exit vectors, perfect for ambush. Deploy all Vulture squadrons and ready tri-fighters. And activate the Magpulse mines. If that machine's reactor is electromagnetic, we'll fry its systems before boarding. General, the tactical droid hesitated. The pilot destroyed 22 Vulture droids in 43 seconds. Casualty projections for standard droid forces are unfavorable. Then we don't use standard forces. Grievous' mechanical eyes gleamed. Deploy the IG-100 Magna Guards. And prepare my personal fighter. I will take this pilot's head myself. The Republic transport Resolute Dawn broke atmosphere 3 hours later, its holds carrying the RX-78-2 Gundam secured in the main hangar. Amuro had insisted on remaining in his mobile suit during transit, a compromise that made the clone crew nervous but kept him ready to launch if things went wrong. Through the Gundam's external cameras, he watched clone troopers moving through the hangar, their identical faces hidden behind distinctive helmets. They really are all clones, he murmured, studying them through his monitors. Same height, same build, same movement patterns. Like mass-produced soldiers. We prefer to think of them as highly trained, Anakin's voice crackled over the comm from the bridge. Each one has their own personality, their own specializations. They're not droids, Amuro. I never said they were. Amuro adjusted the Gundam's external microphones, listening to clone troopers talking as they worked. They spoke with the same accent, the same vocal patterns, but their conversations revealed individual thoughts, complaints about ration quality, speculation about their destination, jokes about a sergeant's dating prospects. People. Definitely people. Just, manufactured ones. It's still unsettling. Where I come from, genetic engineering is heavily regulated. Creating sentient beings specifically for combat would violate a dozen international laws. Your universe sounds idealistic, Ahsoka chimed in from somewhere in the ship. She'd been fascinated by Amuro since his arrival, asking questions about new types and mobile suits with the enthusiasm of a teenager who'd found someone new to learn from. What happens when you need soldiers and nobody volunteers? Conscription. Volunteers incentivized by citizenship or economic benefits. Sometimes people fight because they believe in the cause. Amuro thought of the white base crew. Civilians forced into combat by circumstance, then choosing to stay and fight because someone had to. But manufacturing people to die in wars they didn't choose. That's crossing a line. The clones don't see it that way, Anakin said, and Amuro heard defensive edge in his tone. They're proud of their service. They want to fight for the Republic. Because they were designed to want that, Amuro replied quietly. Doesn't that bother you? Silence answered him. After a moment, Anakin switched channels without responding. Obi-Wan's voice replaced his former Padawan's. You have a talent for asking uncomfortable questions, Lieutenant Ray. It's a valuable quality in a soldier, though it doesn't always make you popular. I learned that lesson the hard way. Amuro checked his tactical displays, noting the ship's trajectory through hyperspace. The concept still seemed impossible, faster-than-light travel without Minovsky physics, using something called hyperdrive that folded space itself. My father designed the Gundam. He believed mobile suits would revolutionize warfare, make it more humane by reducing casualties. Single combat between pilots instead of massive infantry slaughters. How did that work out? Zeon dropped a space colony on Earth. 3 billion dead. Turns out giving people better weapons doesn't make them use them more responsibly. Amuro's hands tightened on the controls. So now when I see a war, I ask questions. Because the wrong choice doesn't just cost my life. It costs everyone who depends on the power I'm carrying. The Jedi Order asks similar questions, Obi-Wan said. Though I admit, our answers haven't always been satisfactory. This war has complicated things. Before the Clone Wars, we were peacekeepers. Negotiators. Now we're generals leading armies, making choices that cost thousands of lives. Some Jedi believe we've lost our way. What do you believe? I believe that failing to act when evil threatens innocence is itself evil. But I also believe that every choice we make in this war costs us something we may never recover. The Force teaches balance, but war only knows extremes. A pause. Perhaps that's why you make us uncomfortable, Lieutenant. You hold up a mirror we don't entirely like looking into. Before Amuro could respond, alarms screamed across the ship's internal systems. His Newtype senses exploded with warning half a second before Anakin's voice crackled urgently over the comm. All hands, battle stations. We've got multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace, Separatist ambush in the Balmorra run. Grievous' flagship just appeared on scopes, and he's brought friends. Amuro's hands flew across the controls, the Gundam systems coming fully online with practiced speed. Through the transport's hull, he felt space itself ripple as ships materialized from hyperspace, dozens of them, surrounding the resolute Dawn in a perfect kill box. His tactical display lit up with threat markers. Vulture droids launching in swarms, tri-fighters moving to intercept positions, and something bigger moving with purpose through the formation. A massive warship, its hull bristling with weapons. And from its forward hangar, a single fighter launched, smaller than the others, moving with precision that screamed elite pilot. "That's Grievous Personal Belbulub, 22, Obi-Wan's voice was grim. "He's here for the Gundam. He'll tear through this ship to get it." Then he's about to learn what happened to everyone else who tried to steal Federation technology. Amuro switched channels to the hangar bay. "Clone troopers in main hangar, clear the launch area immediately. I'm deploying." "Negative, negative." The hangar officer's voice cracked with alarm. "We're still in hyperspace for another 30 seconds. If you launch now, the relativistic shear will tear you apart." Amuro checked the countdown, 28 seconds. Outside, he could feel Grievous' fighter closing, feel weapons charging, feel the killing intent of a hunter who'd claimed dozens of Jedi. 26 seconds. Clone pilots were launching, scrambling to intercept, but Amuro's Newtype awareness painted their deaths before they happened, outmatched, outmaneuvered, outgunned. 15 seconds to hyperspace exit, the navigation officer announced. "Separatist fleet is deploying magpulse mines along our exit vector. Electromagnetic pulse weapons. Designed to fry ship systems. And if the Gundam launched directly into that field. Lieutenant Ray, do not launch." Obi-Wan commanded. "We'll protect you. That's what the Republic fleet is for." But Amuro had seen this scenario before. At Side 7, when Zeon forces attacked and everyone told him to stay hidden, stay safe, let the professionals handle it. He'd watched professionals die. Watched civilians die. Watched his father's research station burn because no one was willing to make the hard choice fast enough. 10 seconds to hyperspace exit. Amuro's finger hovered over the launch activation. His Newtype senses stretched forward, touching the space where they'd emerge, feeling the positions of mines and fighters and that single predator closing for the kill. He could thread it. Barely. Maybe. If his timing was perfect and his instincts were right. 5 seconds. "Amuro, don't," Anakin's warning cut off as the resolute Dawn lurched back into real space. The universe screamed its arrival, space rippling with exotic radiation. And in that moment of transition, when every sensor on every ship was blind from the hyperspace wash, Amuro Ray made his choice. The Gundam launched. Magnetic catapult systems, designed for mobile suit deployment in the universal century, hurled the RX-78-2 out of the hangar at velocities that would have destroyed any Clone Wars-era starfighter. Amuro's normal suit crushed against his chest under acceleration, his enhanced spatial awareness the only thing keeping him conscious as the mobile suit cleared the transport and plunged directly into the minefield. His hands moved faster than conscious thought. Verniers fired. The Gundam twisted. A magpulse mine detonated 3 meters to port, close enough that electromagnetic radiation washed across the Luna titanium armor, but the Minovsky reactor's shielding held. Another mine. Another impossible dodge. The beam rifle came up mid-spin, targeting solutions flowing through Amuro's consciousness like music, and he fired. The pink beam lanced through space, struck Grievous' fighter dead-on, and missed. The cyborg general rolled his craft with reflexes that shouldn't have been possible for something his size, the beam passing so close it scorched his hull plating. Through the Force, Anakin felt Grievous' surprise, quickly replaced by savage anticipation. So, Grievous' mechanized voice crackled across open frequencies. "The Gundam pilot has reflexes. Good. Killing you will actually be interesting." The Belbulub, 22 accelerated, and the greatest cyborg warrior in the Separatist arsenal went one-on-one against the White Devil of the One-Year War. The Clone Wars had just witnessed the beginning of a duel that would echo across the entire galaxy. Space combat in the Clone Wars followed predictable patterns, starfighters circled and strafed, capital ships exchanged broadsides, tactics refined over millennia of galactic conflict. General Grievous had mastered those patterns, his droid brain processing trajectories and firing solutions with mechanical precision. He'd killed 213 Jedi using those calculations, learning their force-enhanced reflexes and exploiting the microsecond delays in human reaction time. But Amuro Ray didn't fight like anything in this galaxy. The Gundam rolled through a three-dimensional axis that shouldn't have been possible for something 18 meters tall, vernier thrusters firing in sequences that defied standard physics. Grievous' initial barrage, twin laser cannons converging on the mobile suit's center mass, struck nothing but vacuum. The white machine was already elsewhere, moving with a fluidity that spoke of pilot and machine functioning as a single organism. Interesting, Grievous rasped, his mechanical hands adjusting targeting parameters. The Gundam's movements weren't random, there was pattern there, anticipatory motion that suggested the pilot was reading his intentions before weapons fired. Precognition. Force sensitivity. But the scanners showed no midichlorian signature, no connection to the energy field that gave Jedi their power. What are you? Amuro's answer was the beam rifle snapping into firing position. Pink particle energy screamed across 200 meters, forcing Grievous into a barrel roll that scraped his fighter against a destroyed Vulture droid's debris. The cyborg general's optical sensors tracked the beam's dissipation. Molecular disruption at the impact point, energy that didn't behave like any turbolaser he'd encountered. Shielding would be inadequate. One clean hit and his fighter would evaporate. All tri-fighters, focus fire on the white mobile suit. Grievous commanded. Magna Guards, prepare boarding craft. I want that pilot alive for interrogation. 12 tri-fighters broke formation, their droid brains calculating optimal attack vectors. They moved as a synchronized unit, approaching from multiple angles while laying down suppressing fire meant to herd the Gundam into a kill zone. It was a tactic that had destroyed countless Republic squadrons. Amuro's Newtype senses painted their intentions in his mind like reading text. He saw the kill zone forming before the tri-fighters committed, saw the three units moving to block his escape vector, saw Grievous positioning for the moment when he'd be forced to choose between multiple fatal threats. A perfect trap. Flawlessly executed. He'd seen Char Aznable use the same tactic at Solomon. The Gundam's thrusters fired in a direction no Clone Wars pilot would have chosen, directly toward the kill zone center. Tri-fighters adjusted, tightening the noose, lasers converging on a target that had just made a fatal tactical error. And then, 100 meters from the convergence point, Amuro executed a maneuver that shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum of space. The Gundam stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Zero velocity in a microsecond, reaction control thrusters firing with such precision that 18 meters of armored mobile suit hung motionless in space while laser fire designed to intercept a moving target passed through empty coordinates. The tri-fighter's droid brains processed error, recalculating, but by then the beam rifle had already spoken twice. 2 tri-fighters exploded into superheated plasma. The remaining 10 scattered, their tactical subroutines flagging the white mobile suit as extreme threat, worthy of capital ship weapons. Impossible, Grievous hissed. His fighter's inertial compensators screamed warnings, the G-forces required for that maneuver should have liquefied any organic pilot. Unless the mobile suit's cockpit had inertial dampening technology that exceeded anything in the known galaxy. Tactical droid. What are the Gundam's internal specifications? Unknown, General. Scanning is ineffective against the hull composition. However, based on observed maneuvers, the pilot must be experiencing forces between 12 and 18 standard gravities. Conclusion: either the pilot is non-organic, or the cockpit contains gravitic compensation systems beyond our current understanding. Grievous' mechanical eyes narrowed. Non-organic seemed unlikely, the Republic's insistence on protecting the pilot suggested flesh and blood. Which meant technology. Advanced technology that the Techno-Union would pay fortunes to acquire. Count Dooku's orders suddenly made much more sense. The cyborg general activated the secondary phase of his attack. Deploy the Pistika sabotage droids. Target the mobile suit's joints and sensor arrays. Disable, don't destroy. Aboard the Resolute Dawn, Anakin watched the battle through the bridge viewports while simultaneously coordinating the Republic fighter screen. 3 clone squadrons were engaging the Separatist vulture droids, buying time for the transport to maneuver away from the ambush zone, but his attention kept returning to the white mobile suit dancing through fire that should have obliterated it. "He's not using the Force," Anakin murmured, reaching out through the mystical energy field to confirm what his instincts already told him. "But he's moving like he can see the future." "Master, how is that possible?" Obi-Wan stood beside him, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "The Force isn't the only path to precognition, Anakin. Some species have natural danger senses. Certain combat drugs can heighten reflexes to near precognitive levels. And if Amuro's Newtype abilities function as he described, enhanced spatial awareness combined with empathic sensing, he might be reading his opponent's intentions through body language and microexpressions processed at subconscious speed. That's not enough to explain what I'm watching." "No," Obi-Wan agreed quietly. "It's not." The buzz droids launched in swarms, dozens of small spheres fired from Separatist tri-fighters, vectoring toward the Gundam with single-minded purpose. Amuro's threat display lit up red as his targeting computer struggled to track so many small, fast-moving objects. These weren't mobile suits. Weren't even starfighters. Just tiny autonomous machines designed to latch onto hull plating and tear through vital systems. Amuro had encountered something similar during the Battle of Lum, Zeon's wire-guided micromissiles. Small, maneuverable, deadly if allowed to reach their target. He'd survived then by doing something no one expected. The Gundam drew both beam sabers. Yellow energy blades ignited, each one generating a magnetic field that contained plasma at temperatures exceeding most stars' surface heat. Amuro spun the mobile suit through 360 degrees, the beam sabers tracing arcs through space that intersected with the buzz droid swarm. 53 sabotage droids evaporated in the first rotation. The remaining dozen made it through the defensive screen, latching onto the Gundam's shield and left shoulder armor. Alarms screamed as cutting torches bit into Luna titanium. Amuro felt the damage through his connection to the mobile suit. Not literal physical sensation, but Newtype awareness that made him intimately conscious of every component's status. The buzz droids were targeting his shoulder joint, trying to disable the arm. Standard procedure: immobilize, then strip weapons, then force surrender. Standard procedure doesn't work on Gundams, Amuro growled. He rotated the left arm inward, bringing the shield close to the torso, then fired the chest-mounted Vulcan guns. 60mm rounds stitched across the shield's surface at point-blank range, the kinetic impacts shattering buzz droids against armor they couldn't penetrate fast enough. Sparks flew. Small explosions peppered the Gundam's chest. But when the Vulcans ceased fire, the buzz droids were scrap metal drifting away into space. Grievous watched the display with something approaching respect. This pilot adapted instantly, used every weapon system available, never hesitated. The kind of tactical flexibility that came from extensive combat experience. From survival in battles where hesitation meant death. "Whoever you are," Grievous transmitted across all frequencies, "you're wasted fighting for the Republic. The Confederacy offers wealth, power, and the freedom to use your abilities without Jedi oversight. Join us. Bring your technology. Together we could." The beam rifle's answer vaporized a tri-fighter that had been moving to flank. Amuro's voice came back cold and precise. "I've heard recruitment speeches from Char Aznable, the Red Comet. From Ramba Rao, the Blue Giant. From a dozen Zeon aces who thought they could convince me the Federation was corrupt and Zeon's cause was just. You know what I learned?" Amuro fired again, forcing Grievous into evasive maneuvers. "Everybody thinks they're the good guys. Everybody has justifications for their atrocities. And I'm done letting charismatic monsters convince me to point my guns at their enemies. Then you'll die as a Republic lapdog, Grievous snarled, his mechanical patience exhausted. All units, overwhelming assault pattern Sigma 7. Ignore the clone fighters, focus everything on the Gundam. The Separatist fleet's entire fighter complement turned as one, abandoning their engagements to converge on Amuro's position. 200 Vulture droids, 40 Tri-fighters, and a dozen Hyena bombers, all carrying ordnance meant for capital ships, created a wall of laser fire and concussion missiles that turned space itself into a killing field. Amuro's threat display went completely red. His Newtype senses screamed with overlapping danger, hundreds of attack vectors converging simultaneously. No dodge existed. No maneuver could avoid this much concentrated fire. Even the Gundam's armor couldn't withstand a sustained barrage of this magnitude. So Amuro Ray did what he'd done at Abawa Chu, when Zeon's remaining fleet had tried to overwhelm him through sheer numbers. What he'd done at Solomon when Dazil Zabi's forces had cornered the White Base. What had earned him the title White Devil and made him the most feared pilot in the Earth sphere. He charged straight into it. The Gundam accelerated to maximum velocity, beam rifle firing in rhythmic precision, one shot every 1.3 seconds, each one erasing a target from existence. Beam sabers swept through formations, converting droids into expanding clouds of superheated gas. The shield absorbed hits that couldn't be dodged, Luna titanium armor sparking under impacts that would have destroyed lesser machines. And through it all, Amuro's Newtype awareness processed information at speeds that made his conscious mind seem slow, tracking threats, calculating trajectories, feeling the shape of battle through senses that transcended normal human limitation. A concussion missile detonated against the Gundam's back, throwing the mobile suit into an uncontrolled tumble. Amuro used the momentum, converting the spin into a wide-beam saber arc that bisected 3 Vulture droids attempting to capitalize on his disorientation. Warning lights flashed across his console, rear armor compromised, thruster 7 offline, energy reserves at 63%. He was running out of ammunition. Running out of power. Running out of time. And Grievous knew it. The cyborg general's fighter closed distance, heavy laser cannons hammering at the Gundam's weakened rear armor while Magnaguard boarding craft moved into position. Amuro twisted to return fire, but a Hyena bomber's payload detonated nearby, the electromagnetic pulse washing across his systems and causing the beam rifle's targeting computer to reset. 3 precious seconds lost while the system rebooted. 3 seconds was eternity in combat. Grievous' fighter opened up point blank, laser cannon stitching across the Gundam's chest and right arm. Armor cracked. Warning klaxons screamed. And the beam rifle, struck directly in its focusing chamber, sparked violently and died, weapon destroyed, 47% charge remaining but no way to discharge it. Your primary weapon is disabled, Grievous transmitted, satisfaction dripping from his mechanized voice. Surrender now and I'll allow your crew to live. Resist further and I'll tear that machine apart with you inside it. Amuro's hands moved across the controls, assessing damage, calculating options. The beam rifle was gone. Rear armor compromised. Energy reserves dropping. He was outnumbered 200 to 1, surrounded by enemy forces, with no backup close enough to matter. Bright Noah would have ordered retreat. Sayla would have counseled surrender. Any rational tactical analysis suggested those were the only logical options. But Amuro Ray had never been particularly good at logic when his Newtype instincts were screaming otherwise. You want the Gundam? Amuro's voice carried across open frequencies as his hands moved to controls most mobile suit pilots never even activated. Then come and take it. The Gundam's backpack opened, revealing the Hyper Bazooka. A weapon designed for close-range capital ship destruction, carried only when mission parameters demanded maximum firepower. Amuro had armed it before leaving Christophsis, a precaution he'd hoped wouldn't be necessary. He aimed at General Grievous' fighter and fired. The projectile crossed the distance in under a second, too fast for even Grievous' enhanced reflexes to fully evade. The cyborg general rolled his craft, the bazooka round missing by 3 meters and detonating against a Separatist frigate behind him. The explosion was catastrophic. The frigate's entire forward section evaporated in a ball of plasma that consumed 20 vulture droids caught in the blast radius. Through the fireball, Amuro fired his remaining thrusters and plunged back toward the Resolute Dawn, the Gundam trailing sparks and damaged armor plating but still functional, still fighting, still refusing to fall. Anakin watched the mobile suit return with something approaching awe. He just went 1 against 200 and survived. More than survived, Obi-Wan corrected quietly. Look at the Separatist formation. The enemy fleet was in disarray. 43 fighters destroyed. 1 frigate crippled. The remaining forces scattered and disorganized, their droid brains struggling to process combat doctrine that didn't match any profile in their databases. And in the center of the chaos, General Grievous' fighter hung motionless, the cyborg general staring at the damaged white mobile suit with an expression that might have been rage or might have been something closer to respect. Transmit to all Separatist forces, Grievous commanded. Withdraw. We'll acquire the Gundam another time, when the Republic's guard isn't so inconveniently high. As the Separatist fleet began jumping to hyperspace, Grievous recorded a personal message and transmitted it on a narrow beam frequency he knew Count Dooku monitored. Master. The pilot is as dangerous as the machine. Perhaps more so. When we acquire this technology, I strongly recommend we eliminate the human element. That kind of combat instinct is too unpredictable to control. The last Separatist ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving only debris and the slowly tumbling wreckage of dozens of droid fighters. The Resolute Dawn's hangar bay doors opened, and the RX-78-2 Gundam limped home on damaged thrusters, its white armor scorched and cracked but its crimson camera eye still burning with defiant light. Amuro shut down the reactor and slumped in his seat, adrenaline crash hitting him like a physical wave. His hands shook. His breath came in ragged gasps. And somewhere in the back of his mind, his Newtype senses whispered that this battle, this first real engagement in a war he didn't understand, had just painted a target on his back that every faction in this galaxy would be eager to acquire. The Clone Wars had a new variable. And neither Republic nor Separatist was prepared for what the White Devil would do next. The holoprojector in Count Dooku's solar sailor displayed the battle's aftermath with crystalline clarity. 43 droid fighters destroyed. 1 frigate crippled. General Grievous, the Confederacy's most lethal weapon, forced into tactical withdrawal by a single pilot in an unknown mobile suit. The Count's elegant features remained composed, but his eyes betrayed keen interest as he replayed the Gundam's movements for the 7th time. Remarkable, Dooku murmured, his aristocratic voice carrying through the meditation chamber. The pilot moves with precognitive awareness yet shows no connection to the Force. A contradiction that suggests alternatives. The hologram flickered, replaced by the withered visage of Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord's yellow eyes gleamed with interest that transcended mere tactical advantage. You sense it too, my apprentice. This Amuro Ray touches something beyond the Force. A different frequency of awareness entirely. The Jedi will try to recruit him. We must ensure that fails. Grievous believes the pilot should be eliminated once we acquire the technology, Dooku reported. I disagree. That kind of combat instinct, properly cultivated, could serve our purposes. If he comes from another universe as he claims, he has no loyalty to Republic or Jedi. No indoctrination to overcome. Simply a soldier seeking purpose. And soldiers can be given purpose, Sidious agreed. But the Jedi Council will offer him sanctuary. Obi-Wan Kenobi is persuasive, and the boy Skywalker has a talent for inspiring trust in warriors. We need leverage. Something to drive a wedge between the pilot and his potential protectors. Dooku's expression shifted to predatory satisfaction. I may have a solution. The pilot spoke of a one-year war and mentioned the name Char Aznable, the Red Comet, as an enemy ace. What if I were to tell you that our intelligence assets detected similar energy signatures to the Gundam's arrival in 3 other locations across the galaxy over the past 2 weeks? Residual exotic radiation, identical wavelength, but no contacts made. You believe others from his universe have arrived. I believe it's possible. And if true, Dooku smiled coldly. Then Lieutenant Ray may be searching for familiar faces. Perhaps even comrades from his white base crew. How tragic it would be if those individuals were to fall into Separatist hands before the Republic could locate them. How motivating it would be for a pilot who values his companions. Sidious's laugh echoed through the hologram, dry and utterly without warmth. Excellent. Have your agents investigate these energy signatures. If you find anyone from Ray's universe, secure them quietly. Don't harm them, we want leverage, not martyrs. And continue monitoring the Jedi Council's deliberations. I want to know every word they speak about the Gundam pilot. As you command, Master. Dooku hesitated. There is one additional concern. Young Skywalker has taken interest in the pilot. They're similar, prodigies thrust into war, pilots with abilities beyond normal humans, both carrying weapons that could reshape galactic conflict. If they bond. Then we use that bond, Sidious interrupted. Skywalker's greatest weakness has always been his attachments. Give him a friend who questions the Jedi way, who challenges the Council's authority, and watch how quickly the Chosen One's doubts multiply. This Amuro Ray could serve our purposes whether he pledges to the Separatists or not. The hologram faded, leaving Dooku alone with his thoughts. He walked to the viewport, watching the streaks of hyperspace flow past. Somewhere ahead, Coruscant waited. The Republic capital, seat of Jedi power, and the location where this new variable would either be contained or exploited. The Count reached out through the Force, touching the dark side's currents, and felt the future trembling with possibility. This Gundam pilot was a fulcrum point. A single decision, properly influenced, could tip entire sectors. The Clone Wars had been carefully orchestrated to weaken the Republic and destroy the Jedi. One more piece on the board wouldn't alter that plan. Unless that piece refused to be played. The Resolute Dawn dropped out of hyperspace 3 hours later, Coruscant cityscape filling the viewports like a metal mountain range stretching to infinity. Amuro stared at the planet-wide metropolis through the Gundam's external cameras, his mind struggling to process the sheer scale. 1 trillion inhabitants. Thousands of kilometers of vertical construction. The entire planet transformed into a monument to galactic civilization. Side 7 housed 50,000 people and I thought that was crowded, Amuro muttered. This is incomprehensible. Welcome to the center of the galaxy, Ahsoka's voice came cheerfully through the comm, pretty overwhelming the first time you see it, right? I grew up on Shirley, open savannas, small communities. When the Jedi brought me here, I couldn't sleep for a week. Too many minds, too much noise in the Force. Amuro hadn't slept either, but for different reasons. His mind kept replaying the battle, analyzing mistakes, cataloging damage, counting how close he'd come to losing. The beam rifle was destroyed. Rear armor needed complete replacement. Thruster 7 required extensive repair. And his ammunition reserves were down to 37 Vulcan rounds and 1 beam saber's worth of charge. In the Universal Century, he'd have returned to White Base for a full refit. Mechanics would swarm the Gundam, Frauabau would check if he was injured, and Bright would debrief him while simultaneously chewing him out for reckless tactics. But White Base was gone, perhaps existed only in another universe entirely. Here, he had no crew. No support structure. Just the Republic military, whose true intentions remained unclear. The transport descended toward the Jedi Temple, a massive ziggurat rising from Coruscant's endless cityscape. Landing platforms extended from its sides like the petals of some enormous mechanical flower. Clone troopers lined the approach vector, not threateningly, but clearly present. A show of security or a subtle warning? Amuro couldn't tell. The council wants to meet you immediately, Obi-Wan transmitted. They've been discussing your situation since we departed Christophsis. I should warn you, some of them are concerned. Powerful weapons that appear without warning tend to make Jedi nervous. Should I be worried? The Jedi don't execute prisoners or confiscate technology without cause, Obi-Wan assured him. But they will have questions. Many questions. And Master Windu in particular has concerns about allowing an unknown military asset to operate freely on Coruscant. Be diplomatic, Lieutenant. Show them you're reasonable and they'll reciprocate. Diplomatic. Amuro had never been particularly good at that. He was an engineer and a pilot, more comfortable with machines than people. But he'd learned something during the 1-year war, sometimes survival depended on words rather than weapons. The transport settled onto the landing platform with practiced precision. Through his external cameras, Amuro watched Jedi emerge from the temple, 12 of them, representing the council. They moved with unconscious grace, their robes flowing in Coruscant's perpetual wind, and every one of them carried a weapon at their hip. Lightsabers. Energy swords that could cut through almost anything, wielded by warriors who could predict the future through this mysterious force. Amuro unsealed the Gundam's cockpit and climbed down, his normal suit's white and red coloring stark against the temple's ancient stone. The Jedi watched him approach, their expressions ranging from curiosity to wariness. At their center stood a dark-skinned man with an aura of absolute authority, Master Mace Windu, if Amuro's briefing was accurate. Lieutenant Amuro Ray, Windu's voice carried weight beyond its volume. Welcome to the Jedi Temple. We've been anticipating your arrival. Thank you for the hospitality, Amuro replied carefully. Though I get the sense this is more interrogation than greeting. A small green alien. Master Yoda, ancient and unsettling in ways Amuro's Newtype senses couldn't quite articulate, chuckled softly. Perceptive, he is. Good. Honest conversation, we require. Pretense wastes time. We've reviewed the battle recordings from Christophsis and the Balmorra Run, Windu continued. Your combat capabilities are concerning. The Gundam destroyed Separatist capital ships with ease. In the wrong hands, that technology could destabilize the entire galaxy. So before we proceed, I need to ask directly, what are your intentions? Why should we trust you? Amuro met Windu's gaze steadily. You shouldn't. Trust has to be earned, and I've been here less than a day. But I'll tell you what I told General Skywalker, I'm not your enemy unless you make me one. I didn't choose to be here. I didn't ask to be dropped into your war. But I'm also not naive enough to think I can stay neutral when every faction in this galaxy wants to either recruit me or kill me. The dark side, I sense not in him, Yoda observed, his massive ears twitching. But touched by something else, he is. Awareness beyond sight. Feeling beyond feeling. A gift, yet not the Force. Curious, most curious. A female Togruta Jedi, Master Shak T, stepped forward. These Newtype abilities you mentioned. Can you describe them more precisely? The Council needs to understand what we're dealing with. Amuro considered his words carefully. Where I come from, humans who grow up in space develop enhanced spatial awareness. We can sense objects around us, feel intentions in others, sometimes perceive events before they occur. It's not magic or mysticism, our scientists theorize it's evolutionary adaptation to three-dimensional environments. The human brain rewiring itself to process spatial information more efficiently. Sounds a lot like Force sensitivity, Anakin interjected. He stood at the council chamber's edge, technically not part of the official proceedings but present nonetheless. Precognition. Enhanced reflexes. Sensing danger before it happens. Those are all Jedi abilities. Perhaps, Obi-Wan said thoughtfully. Or perhaps they're parallel developments. Different universes might produce different solutions to similar challenges. The Force is strong in our galaxy, but that doesn't mean it's the only path to heightened awareness. Windu's expression remained skeptical. Regardless of the source, the fact remains that you possess combat abilities rivaling Jedi Knights and a weapons system that exceeds most capital ships. The Council needs assurances that you won't use that power against the Republic. And what assurances do I get that the Republic won't use me? Amuro countered. I've seen governments draft civilians, press gang pilots, and sacrifice soldiers for political expediency. Before I pledge anything, I need to understand what I'm pledging to. What is the Republic fighting for? What are the Separatists fighting for? Because from where I'm standing, this looks a lot like the war I just left, two sides claiming righteousness while civilians die in the crossfire. The council chamber fell silent. Several Jedi exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others approving of the directness. Finally, a Keldor Jedi, Master Plo Koon, spoke, his voice filtered through his Antioch's mask. Your skepticism is warranted. This war has cost millions of lives and shows no signs of ending. The Republic claims to fight for democracy and freedom. The Separatists claim to fight for independence from corrupt central government. Both sides have committed atrocities. Both sides believe they're justified. Then why do the Jedi fight for the Republic? Because failing to act would allow greater evil to flourish, Windu said firmly. The Separatist leadership, Count Dooku, General Grievous, the corporate interests funding their war machine, they don't care about independence. They want power. Control. The ability to exploit entire sectors without Republic oversight. If they win, billions will suffer under corporate tyranny. And if the Republic wins? Amuro pressed. What happens to the Separatist worlds that have legitimate grievances? Do they get representation, or do they get occupation? That, Obi-Wan admitted quietly, is a question many of us ask ourselves every day. Yoda thumped his Jimmer stick against the floor. Wise beyond your years, young Ray is. Ask the right questions, he does. But answer this we must, stay neutral, can you? Stand aside while others fight and die. Or act you must, one way or another. Amuro thought of Fra Bao, caught in the crossfire at Side 7. Of the civilians he'd failed to save at Solomon. Of the 3 billion who died when Zeon dropped a colony on Earth. Neutrality was a comfortable lie people told themselves when they didn't want to accept responsibility for inaction. I can't stand aside, he admitted. I've tried that before. It doesn't work. People die anyway, and you live with the guilt of knowing you could have helped. But I also won't blindly follow orders or let myself become a weapon for politicians who don't care about the lives they're spending. So if the Republic wants my help, wants the Gundam's help, then I need transparency. Honesty about what you're asking me to do and why. A fair request, Shock T said. What would you propose? Limited engagement, Amuro replied, the tactical part of his brain already gaming out possibilities. I'll assist with specific operations, rescue missions, defense of civilian centers, situations where the Gundam's capabilities can save lives without contributing to escalation. But I maintain autonomy. I'm not a Republic soldier. I'm a temporary ally until either I find a way home or I understand this conflict well enough to make permanent commitments. Windu's expression suggested he'd expected worse. The council will need to deliberate. But I'll speak plainly. Your proposal is more reasonable than I anticipated. Most warriors with your power would demand rank, resources, and authority. You're asking for limited scope and maintained independence. Why? Because absolute power corrupts absolutely, Amuro said quietly. I've seen what happens when people with advanced weapons think they're invincible. Zeon's Newtype labs created pilots who could predict enemy movements, and we thought that made us unstoppable. Then reality proved otherwise. The Gundam is powerful, but it's not invincible. I'm skilled, but I make mistakes. The moment I start thinking otherwise is the moment I become exactly the kind of threat you're worried about. For the first time since the meeting began, Master Yoda smiled, a genuine expression of approval. Humility and awareness together, rare combination they are. Temporary ally you may be, but welcome in this temple, you are. Trust earned gradually must be, not given freely. Wisdom, that shows. The council will vote, Windu announced. Return to your mobile suit, Lieutenant. We'll have an answer within the hour. Amuro bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he'd learned from Rambaral, and turned to leave. But as he walked back toward the landing platform, Anakin fell into step beside him. That went better than I expected, the young Jedi General said. Windu actually looked impressed. That doesn't happen often. I just told the truth. Where I come from, honesty is considered a tactical advantage. People expect deception, so straightforward answers catch them off guard. You'd fit in well with the clones, Anakin said with a slight grin. They're the most brutally honest soldiers I've ever commanded. No politics, no games, just mission and brothers. His expression sobered. Listen, about what you said earlier, about the clones being manufactured for war. You're not wrong. It bothers me too, sometimes. But they're here now, they're people, and they deserve to be treated as such. That's why I fight. Not for the Republic's politicians. For the soldiers under my command who didn't ask to be born into this war. Amuro studied Anakin's face, seeing conviction that reminded him painfully of Lieutenant Sleggar Law, another soldier who'd fought for his comrades rather than abstract ideals. That's a reason I can understand. Just, be careful. I've seen what happens when good soldiers follow bad orders because they trust their commanders. It doesn't end well for anyone. Noted. Anakin paused at the landing platform's edge, watching the Gundam stand silent against Coruscant's twilight sky. Out of curiosity, if the council approves your proposal, where would you want to start? What kind of mission? Somewhere I can make a difference without tipping strategic balance, Amuro replied. Rescue operations. Humanitarian aid under fire. Places where the Gundam's capabilities matter but won't escalate the overall conflict. He glanced at Anakin. Why? Do you have something in mind? Anakin's expression turned grim. Actually, yes. There's a situation developing on Ryloth. The Separatists have occupied the capital and are using Twi'lek civilians as living shields. Republic forces can't assault without massive civilian casualties. But a single unit, fast and precise, might be able to extract hostages before the Seps realize what's happening. Interested? Amuro felt his Newtype instincts prickle, warning or opportunity, he couldn't tell. But the mission parameters matched exactly what he'd proposed. Civilian rescue. Precision operation. Lives saved rather than strategic territory gained. If the council approves, Amuro said carefully, then yes. I'm interested. Anakin grinned. Good. Because I have a feeling you and I are going to do great work together. As Anakin walked away, Amuro couldn't shake the sense that he'd just committed to something far more complicated than a simple rescue mission. The Force might be mysterious to him, but his Newtype awareness was screaming that decisions made in the next few days would echo across this entire war. And somewhere in the shadows of Coruscant's lower levels, Count Dooku's agents were already moving. Following energy signatures, searching for others who'd fallen through the dimensional rift, preparing leverage that would force the Gundam pilot to choose between loyalty and survival. The Clone Wars had found its newest player. And neither side fully understood what they'd unleashed. Ryloth burned beneath twin suns, its reddish atmosphere choked with smoke from cities under siege. The Separatist occupation had transformed the Twi'lek homeworld into a fortress, droid armies patrolling every street, tactical droids calculating optimal suppression patterns, and at the heart of it all, what Tambor of the Techno-Union squeezing every credit of value from the conquered population before Republic forces could liberate them. Or so the Republic claimed. Amuro Ray stood in the Resolute's briefing room, studying tactical holograms while Anakin outlined the mission parameters. But something about the presentation felt incomplete, like watching a chess game where half the pieces were hidden. The capital city of Lesu, Anakin indicated a cluster of structures built into canyon walls. Tambors using 5,000 Twi'lek civilians as deterrent against orbital bombardment. Our capital ships can't fire without killing the hostages, and ground assault would take weeks we don't have. But the Gundam, he zoomed the hologram to show narrow approach vectors through the canyons. You could drop in fast, extract high-value targets, and be gone before their droid army mobilizes. The mission isn't liberation, it's rescue. High-value targets, Amuro repeated. The phrasing bothered him. Not all 5,000 civilians. Specific individuals. Obi-Wan, standing at the room's edge, nodded. Cham Syndulla, leader of the Twi'lek resistance. His tactical knowledge of Rylotha's terrain is invaluable. Additionally, several Republic intelligence assets are trapped in Lesu posing as refugees. Extracting them would prevent Separatist interrogation from compromising other operations. So this is an intelligence extraction disguised as humanitarian rescue. It's both, Anakin insisted. Cham Syndulla is a legitimate resistance leader who'll be executed if we don't pull him out. The intelligence assets are Republic soldiers who deserve extraction. And if we succeed, we'll have local contacts who can help coordinate larger liberation efforts that will save all 5,000 hostages. Amuro studied the tactical hologram, his Newtype instincts processing the battlefield geometry. The approach vectors were tight, canyon walls that would limit the Gundam's mobility, perfect ambush terrain for anti-armor weapons. The extraction point was deep in enemy-controlled territory, surrounded by droid patrols. And the exit strategy relied on speed and precision with almost no margin for error. It was exactly the kind of mission that got pilots killed when intelligence estimates were wrong. What about the other civilians? Amuro asked quietly. The ones who aren't high value. What happens to them? Anakin's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. They stay until we can mount a full liberation. It's not ideal, but... It's triage, Amuro finished. His hands clenched into fists. Save the ones who matter strategically. Accept that the rest might not survive long enough for Phase 2. I've heard this before. The Federation made the same calculations when Zeon invaded. You have a better option. Anakin's voice carried challenge. No, the admission tasted like ash. I hate it, but you're right. We can't save everyone. Not yet. But I want it on record, this is a strategic extraction, not a humanitarian mission. When we report this, we call it what it actually is. Obi-Wan raised an eyebrow. Most officers would prefer the more palatable phrasing for official reports. Most officers are politicians wearing uniforms, Amuro replied. I'm a soldier. Soldiers deal in truth, even when it's ugly. Ahsoka, who'd been silent until now, spoke up from her position near the hologram. I like him. He doesn't sugarcoat things. That quality will either make you a great ally or get you court-martialed, Obi-Wan observed dryly. Possibly both simultaneously. The mission briefing continued for another hour, approach vectors, extraction points, communication protocols, contingency planning for a dozen scenarios where everything went wrong. Amuro absorbed the information with practiced efficiency, his mind already gaming out the three-dimensional battlefield and 1,000 things that could kill him. One question, Amuro said as the briefing concluded. Why me? Why not send a Jedi strike team? Master Kenobi, you mentioned Jedi could infiltrate. Because the Separatists are expecting Jedi, Anakin interrupted. They've positioned droidekas at every likely infiltration point. They've got tactical droids calculating Force user approach patterns. But they're not expecting a giant white mobile suit to drop out of the sky and tear through their defenses before they know what hit them. You're our surprise advantage. Surprise works exactly once, Amuro countered. After Ryloth, every Separatist commander in the galaxy will know the Gundam's capabilities and start planning counters. Then we'd better make this one count, Anakin said with a grin that was equal parts confidence and recklessness. Amuro recognized that expression. He'd seen it on Kaisher Den before particularly insane maneuvers. On Hayato before charging superior numbers. On his own face, reflected in the Gundam's cockpit canopy, during desperate battles where audacity was the only advantage they had left. When do we launch? Dawn, Ryloth local time. 3 hours from now. Anakin extended his hand. Welcome to the war, Amuro. Amuro shook it, feeling the mechanical strength in Anakin's prosthetic. 2 pilots. 2 prodigies. 2 weapons shaped by conflicts they hadn't chosen. The similarity was unsettling. Try not to die, Sky Guy, Ahsoka said as they filed out. Master Obi-Wan hates writing condolence letters. I hate receiving them more, Obi-Wan muttered. The Gundam stood ready in the Resolute's main hangar, technicians swarming over it with the nervous energy of mechanics working on equipment they didn't fully understand. They'd managed to repair the rear armor using Durasteel plating, inferior to Luna titanium but functional. Thruster 7 was operational again. The beam rifle remained destroyed, but the clone armory had fabricated replacement ammunition for the Vulcan guns. 400 rounds. Not much, but enough. Amuro climbed into the cockpit 3 hours before launch, running pre-flight checks with ritualistic precision. Each system responded with familiar efficiency. The Gundam might be damaged, but it was still the most advanced mobile suit ever created by the Earth Federation. Still the machine that had turned the tide at Side 7, Solomon, and Abawachu. Lieutenant Ray. The comm crackled with an unfamiliar voice. This is CT-7567, callsign Rex. I'm leading the clone support team for your extraction. Just wanted to introduce myself before things get hot. Captain Rex, Amuro acknowledged. He'd heard about this one, Anakin's second-in-command, a clone with enough independence to earn a name. Good to meet you. Though I have to ask, why are you providing support? I thought this was a solo insertion. General Skywalker doesn't like leaving pilots without backup, Rex replied. My squad will be holding the extraction point perimeter. You grab the VIPs, we'll cover your exit, everyone goes home alive. Simple. Nothing about this mission was simple, but Amuro appreciated the sentiment. Understood. Try not to shoot the big white mobile suit when I come out hot. We'll do our best. Rex's tone suggested he was smiling. For what it's worth, sir, the boys are glad you're here. That stunt you pulled against Grievous? That's already legend in the barracks. They're calling you the White Devil. Amuro winced. That nickname had followed him through the entire one-year war, Zeon propaganda painting him as a demon, a monster, the destroyer of aces. He'd hoped to leave it behind in his own universe. Apparently, some things transcended dimensional barriers. Tell the boys to save the legends for after we've all survived, Amuro said. Legends are for dead heroes. I prefer to stay breathing. Smart philosophy, sir. Rex out. The hours before dawn crawled past with agonizing slowness. Amuro tried to sleep but couldn't, his Newtype senses kept painting phantom threats, imagined battles, the 1,000 ways this mission could collapse into disaster. Finally, he gave up and spent the time studying Ryloth's geography, memorizing canyon layouts, calculating backup routes and emergency extraction points that briefing hadn't covered. When the call came for launch, Amuro was ready. The Resolute dropped out of hyperspace 30,000 kilometers above Ryloth, immediately deploying clone gunships and fighter cover. Separatist orbital defenses activated, turbolaser batteries tracking the Republic ships, but Anakin's fleet had positioned for exactly this kind of engagement. While capital ships exchanged fire, the Gundam launched from the main hangar, vectors calculated for atmospheric entry at the canyon approach vector. "This is Gold Leader to White Devil," a clone pilot transmitted. "Your entry corridor is clear. Good hunting, sir." White Devil. The name was spreading. Amuro pushed the thought aside and focused on atmospheric entry. The Gundam's heat shields glowed as it hit Rylotha's atmosphere at speeds that would have vaporized lesser machines. The mobile suit shook, rattled, but held together, Luna titanium armor dispersing heat that would have melted Durasteel. 2 minutes to target. Amuro's hands danced across controls, adjusting descent trajectory, preparing weapons, feeling the shape of battle through Newtype awareness. Below, droid sensors were registering an unidentified object in atmospheric entry. Tactical droids were calculating threat parameters. And somewhere in Lesu, Tambor was about to have a very bad morning. The Gundam broke through cloud cover at 3,000 meters, and Amuro got his first clear view of the target zone. Canyon walls rising like natural fortifications. The city of Lesu carved into cliff faces, stone buildings connected by bridges and platforms. And everywhere, battle droids. Hundreds of them, patrolling streets, manning checkpoints, standing guard over huddled Twi'lek civilians whose leku hung limp with exhaustion and fear. Target acquired, Amuro transmitted. Beginning assault. The Gundam's thrusters fired, vectoring the mobile suit into the canyons at combat speed. Battle droids looked up, their simple processors struggling to classify this white giant dropping from the sky. By the time they raised weapons, Amuro had already drawn both beam sabers. Yellow energy blades ignited, and the White Devil went to work. The first platoon of battle droids evaporated in a single sweeping arc, the beam saber's magnetic field converting their droid bodies into molten slag. The second platoon managed to fire, blaster bolts sparking harmlessly off Luna titanium armor, before the Gundam's Vulcan guns stitched through their formation. 60mm rounds at point-blank range turned B-1 battle droids into scrap metal. "What is that thing?" A tactical droid synthesized voice crackled across Separatist frequencies. Identification, unknown. Classification, extreme threat. All units converge on. The beam saber bisected the tactical droid mid-transmission. Amuro pushed deeper into Lesu, his Newtype senses tracking droid positions, civilian locations, the extraction point where Captain Rex's team was supposed to be holding position. The canyons were exactly as tight as briefing predicted, barely enough room for the Gundam to maneuver, walls close enough that a single miscalculation would mean collision. But Amuro had piloted mobile suits through the debris fields at Solomon. These canyons were practically spacious by comparison. A platoon of droidekas rolled into position, activating energy shields and preparing to fire. Their programming calculated that the white mobile suit would have to slow down to engage, giving them time to concentrate fire on vulnerable joints. Amuro didn't slow down. He accelerated. The Gundam crashed through the droideka formation like a missile through paper, beam sabers sweeping left and right, the mobile suit's momentum converting 18 meters of armored mass into an unstoppable battering ram. Droidekas exploded under the impact, their shields useless against kinetic force they weren't designed to counter. Extraction point, 30 seconds, Amuro announced over the command channel. "Captain Rex, are you in position?" "Affirmative." Rex's voice came back tense but controlled. "We've got the VIP secured, but there's a small problem, Tambor deployed spider droids. Big ones. We're pinned down and could really use that mobile suit of yours." Amuro's sensors picked up the signatures. For LM-432 crab droids, each one the size of a small building, advancing on Rex's position with methodical inevitability. Their heavy blasters could punch through clone armor like tissue paper. And behind them, Tambor himself watched from a command platform, his Skakoan environmental suit glinting in Rylotha's harsh sunlight. "Gundam inbound," Amuro transmitted. Get ready to move. The mobile suit burst into the extraction plaza, and for a moment, everything froze. Clone troopers stared. Crab droids recalculated. Wat Tambor's photoreceptors widened. And Cham Syndulla, legendary Twi'lek resistance leader, watched a giant white machine materialize like something from ancient mythology. Then the crab droids opened fire, and the moment shattered. Heavy blaster bolts converged on the Gundam from 4 directions. Amuro twisted, shield intercepting 2 shots while his mobile suit's profile minimized exposure to the others. One bolt clipped the right shoulder, scorching armor but failing to penetrate. The Vulcan gun swiveled, targeting the nearest crab droid's leg joints, the weak points where armor was thinnest. 60mm rounds hammered into the joint, punching through with precision born from months of mobile suit combat. The crab droid's leg buckled, throwing off its aim just as it fired again. The shot went wide, striking a canyon wall and showering debris across the plaza. "Rex, move now," Amuro commanded. "Get your people to the Gundam's position." The clone captain didn't hesitate. "Troopers, on me. VIPs in the center, moving." The squad executed with disciplined efficiency. Years of training compressed into seconds of coordinated action. They sprinted across open ground while Amuro provided covering fire, the Vulcan guns tracking targets with computerized precision. A second crab droid exploded as sustained fire found its power core. The third attempted to flank, massive legs carrying it around the Gundam's position, but Amuro's Newtype awareness painted its trajectory before it moved. The beam saber swept low, severing 2 legs in a single cut. The droid crashed, unable to compensate for the sudden loss of support. "Stop them." Wat Tambor's mechanized voice screeched across comm channels. "I want that mobile suit captured. Deploy all remaining units." But it was too late. Captain Rex's squad reached the Gundam, the VIPs, including Cham Syndulla, huddled between armored clone troopers. Amuro knelt the mobile suit, extending the shield to provide overhead cover while his free hand gestured toward the canyon exit. "Everyone, stay close to the Gundam," Amuro transmitted. "I'll cover your retreat. Move." They moved. Clone troopers and Twi'lek resistance fighters sprinting through streets the Gundam had just cleared, following the mobile suit's path of destruction back toward the extraction point. Behind them, Separatist reinforcements poured into Lesu, hundreds of battle droids, dozens of super battle droids, more crab droids lumbering through streets too narrow for their bulk. And on his command platform, Wat Tambor watched the white mobile suit retreat with calculating fury. "Inform Count Dooku," he ordered. "The Republic has deployed a new weapon. Unknown classification. Extreme combat effectiveness. We need countermeasures immediately." The message transmitted across Separatist networks, reaching commanders across a dozen systems. And in his solar sailor, Count Dooku smiled. The Gundam pilot had performed exactly as predicted, heroic, effective, and now fully committed to Republic operations. The leverage Dooku had been preparing would be all the more effective because of it. "Excellent," Dooku murmured. "Now we spring the trap." The Resolute's medbay hummed with quiet efficiency as clone medics treated minor injuries from the Ryloth extraction. Captain Rex sat on an examination table, back to patches covering burns from a near-miss blaster shot, while Cham Syndulla, lean, battle-hardened, and radiating the kind of controlled fury that came from watching your homeworld burn, stood nearby with arms crossed. 17 civilians left behind, Cham said quietly, his accented basic heavy with accusation. "Your Republic promised liberation. Instead, you extracted 5 people and left thousands under Separatist occupation." Anakin, leaning against the wall with uncharacteristic weariness, met the Twi'lek's gaze without flinching. "We extracted the people who could help us liberate everyone else. Your tactical knowledge of Ryloth's terrain, your contacts in the Resistance, that's how we save the rest. Strategic thinking, Cham. You understand that?" I understand that my people are being used as leverage while Republic admirals calculate acceptable losses. Cham's Leku twitched with barely suppressed anger. And I understand that your white mobile suit could have punched through to the civilian detention centers. Could have saved hundreds instead of 5. In the observation room above, Amuro watched the argument through transparisteel, his hands clenched into fists. Cham was right. The Gundam could have gone deeper, extracted more civilians, maybe even disabled enough Separatist infrastructure to force evacuation. But those weren't the mission parameters. Those weren't the orders. He's not wrong, Amuro said quietly. Obi-Wan, standing beside him, stroked his beard thoughtfully. War is the art of choosing between bad options and worse ones. We saved who we could. Attempting more would have risked everyone, including the people we did extract. Rationalization, Amuro replied. I've heard it before. We made the smart choice. The tactical choice. Saving everyone wasn't feasible. And you know what? You're right. But that doesn't make the people we left behind any less dead when Tambor executes them in retaliation. You think I don't know that? Obi-Wan's voice carried unexpected edge. I've lost count of how many impossible choices this war has forced on me. How many missions where I chose strategy over compassion because that's what generals do. It doesn't get easier, Lieutenant. You just get better at living with the guilt. Before Amuro could respond, alarms shrieked across the ship's intercom. Red lights flashed. A deck officer's voice crackled urgently, General Kenobi, General Skywalker, report to the bridge immediately. We've received an emergency transmission from Separatist sources. Priority Alpha encryption, routed through diplomatic channels. Obi-Wan and Amuro exchanged glances, then ran. The bridge was controlled chaos when they arrived. Anakin was already there, staring at a holoprojector displaying Count Dooku's aristocratic features. The Sith Lord's expression carried smug satisfaction that made Amuro's Newtype senses scream warnings. Ah, General Kenobi, Dooku said pleasantly. And the mysterious Lieutenant Ray. How fortuitous that you're both present. It saves me from repeating myself. What do you want, Dooku? Anakin's hand moved instinctively toward his lightsaber. If you're offering surrender, we'll need it in writing. Surrender? Dooku laughed, the sound utterly without warmth. No, young Skywalker. I'm offering information. You see, our sensors have detected 3 additional exotic energy signatures identical to the spatial anomaly that brought Lieutenant Ray to our galaxy. 3 locations. 3 potential arrivals from his universe. And my agents have already secured 2 of them. Amuro's blood turned to ice. You're lying. Am I? Dooku's image shifted, replaced by surveillance footage. A young woman with auburn hair, wearing a damaged Federation normal suit, being led by battle droids into a detention facility. The image was grainy, time-stamped 18 hours earlier, but unmistakable. Salem, Massachusetts. His crewmate. His friend. The woman who'd pulled him back from the edge more times than he could count during the 1-year war. Sayla, Amuro whispered. The footage changed again. Another figure. This one male, red hair, defiant expression even with restraint binders on his wrists. Kai Sherden. Gunner. Loudmouth. The closest thing to comic relief the white base crew had possessed, and one of the best mobile suit pilots Amuro had ever fought alongside. We found them confused, disoriented, and quite cooperative once we explained their situation, Dooku continued. They're unharmed. Comfortable, even. And they'll remain that way, provided you cooperate. This is a trap, Obi-Wan said flatly. You're baiting him. Of course it's a trap, Dooku agreed cheerfully. But that doesn't make it any less real. Those people are from Lieutenant Ray's universe, his crew, his comrades. And unless he's willing to abandon them to Separatist custody, which somehow I doubt, he'll accept my terms. Amuro forced himself to breathe, to think through the rage and fear threatening to overwhelm tactical judgment. Dooku wasn't making idle threats. The footage was real. Sayla and Kai were here, in this galaxy, prisoners of forces that would dissect them for intelligence or execute them as leverage. What terms? Amuro's voice came out cold, controlled, deadly. Simple. You will deliver the RX-78-2 Gundam to Separatist custody, intact, with all technical specifications and operational parameters. In exchange, I'll release your friends unharmed. You have 48 hours to comply. Coordinates for the exchange will be transmitted to your ship. Absolutely not, Anakin cut in. Amuro, you can't seriously consider. Shut up. Amuro's tone brooked no argument. His eyes never left Dooku's hologram. You mentioned 3 arrivals. Where's the third? Dooku's smile widened. Ah yes, the third. That one proved more elusive. We lost the tracking signature in the outer rim. Perhaps the individual died during transit. Perhaps they're still out there, waiting to be found. I'll leave that mystery for you to ponder while you decide whether your machine is worth 2 lives. The hologram flickered and died, leaving the bridge in silence broken only by the hum of ship systems and Amuro's ragged breathing. It's a trap, Obi-Wan repeated. He'll take the Gundam and kill your friends anyway. That's how Dooku operates. Maybe, Amuro said. But I can't ignore the possibility that he's telling the truth. Sayla and Kai are military personnel. They know risks. But they're also my crew. My responsibility. I can't just leave them. You'll be trading 1 weapon for 2 lives, Anakin argued. The Gundam's technology could shift the entire balance of this war. You'd be handing the Separatists. I know. Amuro's shout cut through the bridge, his control finally fracturing. I know what the Gundam represents. I know what handing it over means. But those aren't abstract strategic assets we're talking about, they're people. Sayla Mas saved my life at least 12 times during the 1-year war. Kai Shirden flew cover for me when Char Aznable almost killed me at Texas Colony. They're not expendable. They're not acceptable losses. The bridge crew had gone silent, every clone trooper and Republic officer watching the confrontation. Captain Rex stepped forward, his voice quiet but firm. Sir, I understand what you're feeling. But if you give up your mobile suit, you're defenseless in this galaxy. The Seps will have no reason to keep you alive. You'll be trading your life and your friends' lives for technology that'll be used to kill thousands. Rex is right, Obi-Wan added. We can mount a rescue operation. Jedi infiltration, clone commandos, proper intelligence gathering. Dooku won't expect. Dooku expects exactly that, Amuro interrupted. That's why he gave me 48 hours. Just enough time for me to either comply immediately or organize a rescue that he'll be perfectly positioned to counter. He's not stupid. He knew this would be my response. Then what's your play? Anakin asked. Because I'm not seeing a third option here. Amuro walked to the viewport, staring out at the hyperspace tunnels swirling blues and whites. His mind raced through scenarios, calculating odds, gaming out possibilities. The Gundam was powerful but not invincible. He was skilled but not omniscient. A direct assault on a Separatist facility designed to anticipate rescue attempts would be suicide. But suicide missions sometimes succeeded when the enemy underestimated their opponent's willingness to take insane risks. I'm going to trade the Gundam, Amuro said quietly. But not the way Dooku expects. Elaborate, Obi-Wan commanded. Amuro turned, his expression set with decision that bordered on recklessness. Dooku wants the mobile suit intact with full technical specifications. He wants to reverse engineer the technology, build Separatist versions, turn our advantage into his advantage. But the Gundam has a self-destruct system. Minovsky reactor overload. It was installed as a failsafe in case the mobile suit fell into Zeon hands. 30-second timer, yields approximately 20 kilotons. Enough to vaporize a city block and everyone in it. The implications crashed across the bridge like a physical wave. Anakin's eyes widened. Obi-Wan's expression turned grim. Captain Rex muttered something that might have been a prayer or a curse. You detonate your own mobile suit? Anakin asked. Destroy the only weapon that gives you any leverage in this galaxy. I'd destroy it to save my crew, Amuro corrected. The Gundam is a machine. Powerful, yes. Revolutionary, absolutely. But ultimately replaceable. Sayla and Kai aren't. And if Dooku thinks I'll choose technology over people, then he fundamentally misunderstands who I am. This is insane, Obi-Wan said, though his tone suggested he was already calculating feasibility. You're proposing to walk into a separatist trap, pretend to surrender, then blow up yourself, your mobile suit, and everyone within the blast radius? The odds of surviving are terrible, Amuro finished. I know. But I'm a new type. I can feel spatial relationships, sense danger before it manifests, react faster than normal human reflexes allow. If there's a way out, even a narrow one, I'll find it. And if there isn't? Amuro met Obi-Wan's gaze steadily. Then I die. But my friends go free, the Gundam's technology doesn't fall into Separatist hands, and the galaxy doesn't have to worry about Dooku's forces getting mobile suits. It's an acceptable trade. It's a waste, Anakin snapped. You're one of the most skilled pilots I've ever seen. Throwing your life away because of some misguided sense of loyalty. It's not misguided, Amuro interrupted. Loyalty is the only thing that kept me sane during the 1-year war. When everything else was chaos and horror and impossible decisions, I had my crew. People who trusted me. People I trusted. That meant something. Still means something. And if you can't understand that, if the Republic has trained you to value strategic assets over human connections, then maybe I've been fighting for the wrong side. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Anakin's mechanical hand clenched into a fist, his connection to the Force rippling with frustrated anger. But before he could respond, Ahsoka's voice cut through the tension. He's right. Everyone turned. The young Padawan stood in the doorway, her expression serious beyond her years. Master Anakin, you taught me that the mission matters less than the people we're protecting. That winning battles doesn't mean anything if we lose ourselves in the process. Amuro's doing exactly what you'd do if it was me and Master Obi-Wan being held hostage. Anakin opened his mouth, closed it, then exhaled slowly. That's different. How? Ahsoka challenged. Because they're from another universe? Because you've known them for less time? They're still people. Still his crew. If it was Rex and Fives and Echo in Separatist hands, you'd tear through an entire battle fleet to get them back. Don't tell Amuro his loyalty is wrong when it's the same loyalty you've shown us. Silence. Then Anakin's shoulders sagged slightly. You're going to do this regardless of what I say, aren't you? Yes, Amuro confirmed. But I'd rather do it with Republic support than against Republic opposition. If you can provide intelligence on the exchange location, insertion vectors, anything that improves my survival odds, I'll take it. But I'm going. That's not negotiable. Obi-Wan exchanged glances with Anakin, an entire conversation passing between former master and apprentice in the space of heartbeats. Finally, Obi-Wan nodded. Very well. We'll support your operation. But I'm assigning a Jedi escort, someone who can provide emergency extraction if things go wrong. I'll go, Anakin said immediately. No, Obi-Wan countered. You're too emotionally invested. This requires someone who can maintain objectivity even when the situation deteriorates. He turned to Ahsoka. Padawan Tano, you'll accompany Lieutenant Ray. Covert insertion, long-range observation, ready to extract if an opportunity presents. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Understood? Ahsoka's face split into a fierce grin. Understood, Master. This is a terrible idea, Captain Rex muttered. But if we're doing this, my squad's providing perimeter support. Someone has to cover your exit when everything inevitably goes sideways. Amuro felt something a knot in his chest, not relief exactly, but the recognition that he wasn't completely alone in this insanity. Thank you. All of you. Don't thank us yet, Obi-Wan said grimly. Thank us if you survive. Now, we have 48 hours to plan an operation that violates every reasonable tactical doctrine. Let's get to work. As the planning session began, holographic maps, infiltration routes, contingency upon contingency for variables they couldn't predict. Amuro stared at the frozen surveillance images of Sayla and Kai. They looked tired. Scared. But alive. He'd keep them that way. Or die trying. Somewhere in the void, Count Dooku reviewed reports with satisfaction. The bait had been taken. The trap was set. And in 48 hours, the Separatist Confederacy would possess either the Gundam's intact technology or detailed combat data from its destruction, either outcome advancing their strategic position. What Dooku didn't know, what his arrogance and Sith confidence prevented him from considering, was that Amuro Ray had spent an entire year fighting a war where conventional tactics failed and only desperate innovation kept him alive. The Count expected a soldier to make a soldier's choice. He was about to learn that Newtypes didn't think like normal humans. And the White Devil's legend had been built on doing the impossible when everyone said it couldn't be done. The Clone Wars was about to witness what happened when someone refused to accept the rules of engagement. The exchange point was a Separatist mining facility on Obadiah, a moon scarred by industrial extraction, its surface pockmarked with drill sites and processing plants long abandoned. The coordinates Dooku transmitted led to the largest facility, a sprawling complex of durasteel and transparasteel that had once processed Christophsis or before the veins ran dry. Now it served as exactly what it appeared to be, the perfect location for an ambush. Amuro piloted the Gundam through Obadiah's thin atmosphere alone, Ahsoka following 3 kilometers behind in a stealth-configured Eta-2 interceptor. Captain Rex and his squad were positioned at the moon's edge, ready to provide extraction when, everything went wrong. The plan was simple, insane, and had approximately a dozen points where single mistakes would cascade into total failure. Amuro had been in worse situations. Not many, but a few. I'm picking up massive energy signatures in that facility, Ahsoka transmitted on their encrypted channel. Battle droids, definitely. But also something bigger. Multiple capital ship-grade power sources that shouldn't be there. Dooku brought insurance, Amuro replied, his Newtype senses already painting the tactical picture. He could feel the droid army waiting below, not individual consciousnesses like living beings, but the cold mechanical intent of thousands of programmed killers. And something else. Something that pulsed with malevolent awareness. Force-sensitive. Powerful. He's there. Dooku himself. I can feel him. Can you feel my friends? Amuro stretched his Newtype awareness, searching for familiar patterns among the alien presences. There, 2 signatures that resonated with recognition, muted by drugs or restraints but unmistakably human. Alive. Conscious. Terrified but defiant. They're here. Ground level, eastern section. Heavily guarded. Then we stick to the plan, Ahsoka said, though her voice carried doubt. You make the exchange. I create a distraction. Rex extracts your friends during the chaos. You trigger the self-destruct and we all get out before the Gundam vaporizes half the facility. Simple, Amuro said without humor. Suicidal, Ahsoka corrected. But I guess that's what heroes do. The Gundam descended toward the designated landing platform, a massive durasteel square surrounded by weapon emplacements and droid positions. Amuro counted 300 battle droids in immediate visual range. Droidekas positioned at every choke point. And something new. Massive war machines that looked like walking fortresses, each one bristling with enough firepower to destroy a Republic cruiser. What are those? Amuro transmitted. Octoptera droids, Ahsoka replied, her voice tight. Capital ship killers. Designed to take down heavily armored targets. Dooku really doesn't want you leaving with the Gundam. He won't have to worry about that. The mobile suit touched down with practiced precision, the 18-meter machine's feet barely disturbing the platform's surface. Immediately, magnetic clamps erupted from the deck plating, locking onto the Gundam's legs and anchors. Amuro had expected this. Dooku wouldn't risk him launching at the last second. What he hadn't expected was how quickly the restraints deployed. Professional. Military-grade equipment operated by someone who understood mobile suit specifications. Someone who'd studied the Gundam extensively. "Welcome, Lieutenant Ray," Count Dooku's voice echoed across external speakers. The Sith Lord emerged from the facility's main entrance, flanked by Magna Guards and what appeared to be a Skakoan in environmental suit, Wat Tambor, still bitter about Ryloth. "I appreciate punctuality. It's such a rare quality in young people these days." Amuro kept his hands on the controls but didn't activate weapons. "Not yet. Where are my crew?" "Safe. Comfortable. Though I must say, they've been rather uncooperative during questioning. The young woman, Sayla, was it? Has remarkable resilience. She refused to divulge technical specifications even under pharmaceutical encouragement. Your Kai was more talkative but mostly complained about the food." Dooku smiled coldly. "Loyalty is admirable. Misplaced loyalty is tragic. Show me proof of life. Now." Dooku gestured, and two figures were dragged onto the platform by battle droids. Sayla Mass looked thinner than Amuro remembered, her auburn hair disheveled, but her eyes burned with defiant intelligence. Kai Shirden sported fresh bruises but still managed a cocky grin when he saw the Gundam. "Hey, Amuro!" Kai shouted across the distance. "Nice entrance. You always did know how to make an impression." "Quiet," a Magna Guard struck Kai with an electrostaff, dropping him to his knees. Sayla moved to help him but was restrained by another droid. Amuro's hands tightened on the controls, every instinct screaming to draw beam sabers and tear through the droids between him and his crew. But that was the trap. That was what Dooku expected, emotional response overriding tactical judgment. "They're alive," Amuro said, forcing his voice steady. "That's what you promised. Now I deliver the Gundam as agreed." "Not quite," Dooku interrupted. "First, you'll disembark and provide access codes. Then you'll walk my technical team through the mobile suit's systems, reactor specifications, weapons configurations, propulsion mechanics. Only after I'm satisfied that the technology is genuine and replicable will I release your companions." That wasn't the deal. "The deal," Dooku replied, his aristocratic tone hardening, "is whatever I say it is. You're surrounded by forces sufficient to destroy your mobile suit through sustained bombardment. Your friends are one word from execution. And while I admire your combat prowess, Lieutenant, you cannot defeat 300 droids, 12 Octoptera platforms, and a Sith Lord simultaneously. So you will comply, or everyone dies. Choose." The magnetic clamps tightened, servos whining as they locked the Gundam completely immobile. On his tactical display, Amuro watched weapon systems targeting his mobile suit from a dozen angles. The Octoptera droid's main cannons charged, their energy signatures building to lethal levels. "Amuro," Ahsoka's voice crackled urgently in his ear. "This is wrong. He's not going to let any of you leave. Abort now, we'll find another way." Amuro muted the channel. Then he opened the cockpit. The atmosphere of Obadiah hit him, thin, cold, carrying the metallic taste of industrial residue. Amuro climbed down the access ladder, his white normal suit stark against the Gundam's armor, and walked across the platform toward Dooku. Every droid weapon tracked him. Every sensor focused on his movements. A wise choice, Dooku said. Now, the access codes. No. The single word hung in the air like thunder. Dooku's expression shifted from satisfaction to confusion to anger in rapid succession. Excuse me. I said no. Amuro's hand moved to his belt, where a small device, no larger than a comm unit, sat clipped to his normal suit. See, I spent the last 48 hours preparing for this exchange. Studying your tactics. Analyzing your psychology. And I realized something, you're not going to let us go regardless of what I give you. You'll extract the information, execute my crew, and probably try to capture me for interrogation about Earth Federation military capabilities. A logical analysis, Dooku admitted. So if you know it's a trap, why walk into it? Because you made one critical mistake. Amuro's thumb hovered over the device. You assumed the Gundam was my only weapon. But in my universe, we learned something during the 1-year war, the most powerful weapon isn't technology. It's the willingness to sacrifice everything for the people you love. Dooku's eyes widened in realization. The self-destruct. Amuro pressed the button. The Gundam's reactor immediately began overload sequence. Minovsky particles flooded containment chambers, fusion reaction accelerating beyond safety parameters. 30 seconds to detonation. The mobile suit's external speakers blared warnings in Universal Century Standard, a language no one in this galaxy understood but whose meaning was universally clear. Chaos erupted. Battle droids turned toward the Gundam, weapons charging but uncertain whether to fire or flee. The Octoptera droids recalculated, their targeting computer struggling to process a threat that was about to cease existing. What Tambor screamed orders, his mechanical voice cracking with panic. And Count Dooku, for perhaps the first time in decades, looked genuinely surprised. You're bluffing, Dooku said, but uncertainty flickered across his aristocratic features. You wouldn't destroy your only way home. I haven't had a home since Side 7 burned, Amuro interrupted. 25 seconds. The Gundam is a machine. My crew is family. Easy choice. Dooku's hand moved to his lightsaber, curved hilt gleaming. Then you'll die with them. Magna Guards, execute the prisoners. The eastern facility wall exploded. Captain Rex and his clone squad came through the breach like an avalanche of blue and white armor, DC-15 blasters cutting down battle droids with precision fire. Behind them, Ahsoka Tano ignited her twin lightsabers and became a green and yellow blur, her Padawan speed augmented by combat fury that made her practically invisible to normal perception. Get down! Rex roared at Sayla and Kai. They dropped flat as clone troopers laid suppressing fire, creating a corridor of destruction between the prisoners and their guards. Ahsoka's lightsabers swept through Magna Guards like they were constructed of cardboard, electromagnetic pulse disrupting their circuits before her blades bisected their chassis. 20 seconds to detonation. Amuro drew the beam pistol from his hip, a backup weapon, smaller than the Gundam's armaments but still capable of punching through battle droid armor. And fired. The pink particle beam caught Dooku by surprise, forcing the Sith Lord into a defensive posture. His lightsaber ignited, red blade intercepting the beam in a shower of sparks that sent him skidding backward. Impressive, Dooku admitted, recovering with force-enhanced grace. But ultimately futile. Even if you rescue your friends, you'll never escape the blast radius. Don't need to escape, Amuro replied. His Newtype senses were fully engaged now, tracking every moving object within 500 meters, feeling the shape of battle through awareness that transcended normal perception. Just need to get clear enough. 15 seconds. Ahsoka reached Sayla and Kai, her lightsabers creating a defensive perimeter while Rex's squad provided covering fire. "Can you run?" she demanded. "After 2 weeks of captivity?" Kai grinned despite the situation. "Try and stop me." They ran. Clone troopers formed a fighting retreat, blasters hammering at the droid army attempting to surround them. Octoptera droids opened fire, massive energy cannons tracking the fleeing figures, but Ahsoka's force awareness guided them through gaps in the firing pattern that shouldn't have existed. 10 seconds. Dooku reached out through the force, attempting to stop Amuro with telekinetic grip, a technique that had crushed throats and shattered bones. But Amuro's Newtype instinct screamed warning half a second before the force closed around his throat, and he dove sideways with enhanced reflexes that bordered on precognition. The beam pistol fired twice more, forcing Dooku to maintain distance. "Your awareness is remarkable," Dooku observed, circling like a predator. "Similar to force sensitivity but operating on different principles. Given time, you could become quite formidable. It's a shame you chose the wrong side." "I didn't choose a side," Amuro gasped, his throat bruised from the partial force grip. "I chose people. There's a difference." 5 seconds. Amuro's hand moved to his belt, finding the grappling line he jury-rigged from clone trooper equipment. One shot. One chance. He aimed at the facility's upper structure, a crane arm extending over the platform, and fired. The magnetic grapple caught, locked, and Amuro triggered the retraction mechanism. 3 seconds. He flew through the air like a missile, the grapple line yanking him away from the Gundam at velocities that would have dislocated a normal human's shoulder. Behind him, Dooku realized too late what was happening. "All units retreat." The Sith Lord's command crackled across every frequency. "Immediate evacuation." 1 second. The Minovsky reactor achieved critical mass. 30 kilotons of fusion energy released in a single catastrophic instant. The Gundam, revolutionary prototype, last of its kind, the mobile suit that had changed warfare forever, vaporized in a ball of white-hot plasma that expanded at supersonic velocity. The explosion consumed the landing platform, the magnetic clamps, 300 battle droids, 8 Octoptera platforms, and half the facility. The shockwave threw Amuro like a ragdoll, the grapple line snapping as he tumbled through superheated air. His normal suit's heat shielding activated automatically, but temperature warnings screamed across his heads-up display. Then hands caught him, small hands, strong with force-enhanced grip. Ahsoka Tano, using every ounce of her Padawan training to arrest his momentum, pulled him toward the extraction point where Rex's gunship waited with engines hot. "I've got you!" Ahsoka shouted over the roar of the explosion. "Everyone in! Now!" They piled into the gunship, Amuro, Sayla, Kai, clone troopers, and one exhausted Padawan, as the pilot punched maximum thrust. The ship screamed away from Obadiah's surface, racing ahead of the expanding fireball that was consuming what remained of the facility. Behind them, Count Dooku stood on the edge of the destruction, his robes singed but otherwise unharmed. His expression carried something that might have been respect or might have been fury. With Sith Lords, the distinction was often academic. "Track them," Dooku ordered his remaining forces. "I want to know where they go, who they contact, every move they make. That pilot just cost us billions in potential technology. But he also demonstrated exactly why the Separatist alliance needs weapons like the Gundam. Find me an alternative. Find me engineers who can replicate that reactor technology. And find me the third arrival from their universe before the Republic does." The solar sailor departed, leaving only ruins and the cooling crater where the RX-78-2 Gundam had made its final stand. Aboard the gunship, Sayla Mass grabbed Amuro in a fierce hug that nearly cracked his ribs. "You absolute idiot," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You destroyed the Gundam. Your father's life work. The only mobile suit that could be studied and replicated by people who'd use it to kill millions," Amuro finished quietly. I made the choice Dad would have wanted. People over technology. Every time. Kai Shiden clasped Amuro's shoulder, his usual cockiness subdued. Thanks for coming back for us, Lieutenant. Though next time, maybe try a plan that doesn't involve exploding your own mobile suit. Next time, try not to get captured by Sith Lords. Fair point. Captain Rex handed Amuro a water canister, his expression unreadable behind the helmet. That was the craziest extraction I've ever participated in. And I've served with General Skywalker for 3 years. You're officially insane, sir. But you got your people out, and in my book, that makes you one of us. Ahsoka collapsed against the bulkhead, exhaustion finally catching up with adrenaline. Master Anakin is going to kill me for letting you destroy the Gundam. He'll have to get in line, Amuro replied. Then, more seriously, thank you. All of you. I couldn't have done this without. His Newtype senses suddenly exploded with warning. Something approaching. Fast. Familiar. A presence he hadn't felt since the final battle at Abawachu. Evasive maneuvers. Amuro shouted. The pilot reacted instantly, rolling the gunship just as a red beam, not a turbolaser, not a blaster bolt, but something that made Amuro's blood run cold, lanced through the space they'd occupied a heartbeat before. Through the viewport, descending from Obadiah's upper atmosphere, came a mobile suit. Not a Gundam. Not Earth Federation design. But unmistakably from the Universal Century, red armor, mono-eye sensor, a silhouette that had haunted Amuro's nightmares for a year. A Zaku. And not just any Zaku. The modifications, the color scheme, the way it moved with predatory grace. No, Amuro whispered. That's impossible. The Zaku's mono-eye flared, and across the comm channels came a voice that every white base crew member recognized with bone-deep terror. Hello, Amuro. Did you really think you were the only one to fall through the void? Char Aznable. The Red Comet. Amuro's greatest rival, deadliest enemy, and the one pilot in the entire Universal Century who'd consistently matched him in combat. The Clone Wars had just gotten infinitely more complicated. The gunship shuddered as another beam passed within meters of the hull, close enough that heat sensors screamed warnings. The pilot, a clone-designated Hawk. Threw the ship into a spiraling dive that would have torn apart lesser craft. Through the viewport, the red Zaku pursued with a grace that defied the mobile suit's bulk, its mono-eye tracking their movements with predatory precision. That's a mobile suit. Sayla's voice cracked with disbelief. Amuro, that's a Zaku too. How is that possible? Char, Amuro replied, the name tasting like poison. His Newtype senses painted the familiar presence, arrogant, brilliant, utterly ruthless. It has to be. No one else pilots like that. Kai leaned forward, staring at the pursuing mobile suit. But if Char's here, that means when the dimensional rift opened. It pulled multiple people through, Amuro finished. Not just us. Zeon forces too. And of course the first one we encounter would be him. The Zaku fired again, beam rifle discharging with mechanical efficiency. Hawk rolled the gunship perpendicular to the attack vector, engines screaming at maximum output. General Skywalker, this is Extraction Team Gamma. We are under attack by unknown hostile, repeat, unknown hostile matching no known Separatist or Republic designs. Requesting immediate support. Anakin's voice crackled back instantly. On our way. Hold position. Negative. Amuro cut in. Don't engage. That's a Zeon mobile suit piloted by an elite ace. Your fighters won't stand a chance in visual range combat. We need to reach the Resolute before. The Zaku accelerated, closing distance with thruster output that shouldn't have been possible. Char had modified his mobile suit extensively, upgraded reactors, enhanced verniers, weapon systems that exceeded standard Zaku specifications. This wasn't a mass production unit. This was a custom machine built by someone who understood exactly how deadly mobile suits could be. Amuro, Char's voice carried across open frequencies, smooth and mocking. Destroying the Gundam. How dramatic. How wasteful. That mobile suit was your only advantage in this galaxy, and you vaporized it for what? 2 crew members. Your sentimentality will be your downfall. Better than your sociopathy, Amuro shot back, grabbing the gunship's comm unit. What are you doing here, Char? What deal did you make with the Separatists? Deal? Char laughed, the sound utterly without warmth. I haven't made any deals. When I arrived in this galaxy 3 weeks ago, I observed. Learned. Studied the factions and their conflicts. And I realized something fascinating. This Clone Wars is fundamentally similar to our 1-year war. A republic growing corrupt and complacent, a separatist movement fighting for independence, and in the middle, idealistic soldiers who think they're fighting for justice while really serving political masters who care nothing for their lives. The Zaku fired again, this time targeting the gunship's engines. Hawk jinked left, but the beam clipped the starboard thruster. Alarms screamed. The ship lurched, losing altitude rapidly. We're hit. Hawk reported. Starboard engine at 40%. We won't make orbit. Emergency landing. Captain Rex commanded, already moving through the gunship's interior. All personnel, brace for impact. We're going down. The gunship plummeted toward Obadiah's surface, trailing smoke and sparks. Amuro's Newtype senses painted the approaching ground, rocky terrain, abandoned mining equipment, narrow canyons that might provide cover if they survived the crash. His hands gripped the seat restraints, watching the Zaku descend parallel to their trajectory, matching their fall with casual precision. Char's toying with us, Sayla realized. He could destroy the gunship completely. He's choosing not to. He wants something, Amuro agreed. Probably me. Char never could resist a dramatic confrontation. The gunship hit the ground hard, skipping twice before Hawk managed to bleed off enough velocity for a controlled crash. Metal shrieked. Systems exploded. The world became noise and violence and pain. Then sudden, terrible silence broken only by the hiss of escaping atmosphere and the groan of stressed metal. Amuro unbuckled, forcing his battered body to move. Everyone out. Now. Before the fuel cells rupture. They evacuated through the emergency hatch, clone troopers moving with disciplined efficiency despite injuries, Ahsoka using the Force to help wounded soldiers, Sayla and Kai providing support. The group scrambled away from the crashed gunship just as secondary explosions began cooking off ammunition. 20 meters away, the red Zaku landed with perfect control, its feet barely disturbing the dust. The mobile suit straightened, beam rifle aimed casually at the survivors, and Char's voice echoed from external speakers. How the mighty have fallen. The white devil of the Federation, reduced to fleeing in a primitive troop transport. It's almost sad. The Zaku's cockpit hatch opened, and a figure descended, tall, wearing a crimson normal suit and the distinctive helmet that had become Char Aznabul's trademark. Behind the golden visor, Amuro knew eyes as cold as vacuum watched with calculating interest. Stay back, Captain Rex warned, his DC-15 blaster aimed at Char despite the futility. Republic forces are inbound. Surrender now and what? Char interrupted. You'll arrest me? Interrogate me? Your primitive weapons can't penetrate my normal suit's shielding, and your mobile armor technology is centuries behind what Zeon developed during the 1-year war. You're not threatening me, Captain. You're simply determining how quickly you die. Amuro stepped forward, positioning himself between the Red Comet and his crew. You want me? Fine. Let them go and we'll settle this, you, me, and whatever twisted ideology you're serving this week. Char's helmet tilted, considering. Tempting. But I have a better proposal. You see, Count Dooku has been very interested in universal century technology since he learned about your arrival. When I contacted him, offering intelligence about mobile suit design, tactical doctrine, and the weaknesses of your precious Gundam, he was quite receptive. In exchange for that information, I received resources. Repair facilities. Raw materials to restore my Zaku. And a promise. What promise? Ahsoka demanded, her lightsabers ignited and ready. That when Dooku captures Amuro Ray, I'll be the one to kill him. Char's hand moved to his hip, drawing a beam pistol identical to the one Amuro carried. But Dooku underestimated your willingness to destroy your own mobile suit. So now the situation has changed. I'll deliver you to Separatist custody personally. Your crew can watch you die, then join you. Poetic, don't you think? You're working with the Separatists. Sayla's voice carried betrayal that transcended their enemy status. Char, these people use slavery, commit genocide on civilian populations. And the Earth Federation dropped nuclear weapons on its own colonies to suppress independence movements, Char countered. Don't lecture me about morality, Sayla. All governments are corrupt. All wars are fought over power and resources dressed up as ideology. The only difference is which lies you choose to believe. That's not true, Amuro said quietly. His Newtype senses were screaming warnings. Not just about Char, but about something else approaching. Multiple presences, vast and hostile. Separatist forces responding to the explosion at their facility. You've convinced yourself that nothing matters because it's easier than admitting you care. That your crusade against the Zabis was personal, not political. That revenge consumed you so completely there's nothing else left. For a moment, Char's posture stiffened. Then his laugh echoed across the barren landscape. Philosophical analysis from the boy who piloted a mobile suit because someone put him in the cockpit. How rich. But this conversation is over. Separatist forces arrive in 3 minutes. You can surrender now and make this easy, or resist and make it entertaining. Choose. Amuro's hand moved toward his beam pistol. Behind him, he felt Rex and his squad ready to fight despite impossible odds. Felt Ahsoka gathering the force for desperate defense. Felt Sayla and Kai preparing to support however they could, even weaponless and exhausted. They would fight. They would lose. And Char would deliver them all to Dooku's mercy. Unless... Amuro's Newtype senses suddenly exploded with new information. A presence, powerful and approaching fast. Not Separatist. Not Republic. Something else entirely. A resonance that felt almost like the Force but sharper, more defined, carrying intent that radiated justice and controlled fury. The sky above them split with crimson light. A mobile suit descended through Obadiah's atmosphere, but not a Gundam, not a Zaku, something different entirely. White and blue armor, elegant curves that suggested speed over brute force, twin beam cannons mounted on shoulders that looked like wings, and a grace in its movements that transcended mechanical operation. That's impossible, Char whispered. The mobile suit landed between Char's Zaku and the survivors, its height matching the Zeon machine but its design philosophy completely different. Advanced. Refined. Beautiful in the way only cutting-edge technology could be beautiful. And painted across its chest in elegant script, MSC-006. The Zeta Gundam. But the Zeta hadn't been developed until years after the One-Year War. Shouldn't exist yet in the universal century timeline. Unless... The cockpit opened, and a figure emerged. Young, dark-haired, wearing a pilot suit that marked him as AEUG, Anti-Earth Union Group, the force that opposed the Titans in the GRYPS conflict that happened after Amuro's time. The pilot's eyes carried combat experience beyond his apparent age, and when he spoke, his voice resonated with Newtype awareness that made even Char take a step backward. Char Aznable, the pilot said. You're under arrest for war crimes, conspiracy with hostile forces, and general jackassery. Step away from those people. Now. Who, Char demanded, are you? The pilot smiled. Camille Biden. AEUG Mobile Suit Corps. And you just made a very bad mistake. He gestured toward the Zeta Gundam. That mobile suit behind me. It's from 7 years in your future. Variable frame design, biosensor interface, Gundarium gamma armor that makes your Zaku look like a toy. You want to fight? I'll turn that antique into scrap before your reactor even charges. Amuro stared. Camille Biden. The protagonist of Zeta Gundam, the sequel series that chronicled conflicts years after the One-Year War. A pilot legendary for his Newtype abilities and the revolutionary mobile suit he commanded. Somehow, the dimensional rift had pulled not just from one point in the Universal Century timeline but multiple points. This is getting complicated, Ahsoka muttered. You have no idea, Amuro replied. Char's beam pistol remained aimed at the survivors, but his posture had shifted, calculating new variables, assessing this unexpected complication. Camille Biden. I've heard of you. The boy who destroyed the Titans and broke Sirocco's ambitions. Impressive. But you're outnumbered. Separatist forces arrive in less than 2 minutes, and Count Dooku has dispatched his personal guard. Even the Zeta Gundam can't fight an entire army. Watch me, Camille replied. But then his expression changed, Newtype senses detecting what Amuro's already felt, massive energy signatures approaching from multiple vectors. Not just Separatist droids, but something else. Republic forces. Jedi signatures. And overhead, descending through atmosphere on pillars of fire. Anakin Skywalker's twilight broke through the clouds, flanked by a dozen Republic gunships and a full squadron of clone fighters. The Jedi General's voice crackled across all frequencies, carrying authority that brooked no argument. All hostile forces, stand down immediately. This moon is under Republic jurisdiction, and anyone who resists will be engaging the entire Third Fleet. Char Aznable. If that's really who you are, you have 10 seconds to surrender before we demonstrate why Jedi Knights don't negotiate with terrorists. Char looked at his Zaku, at the Zeta Gundam, at the approaching Republic fleet. His mathematical mind calculated odds, processed variables, recognized the inevitable conclusion. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and rapidly running out of time before Separatist and Republic forces turned this entire area into a war zone. This isn't over, Amuro, Char transmitted on a private frequency. The dimensional rift pulled more than just us into this galaxy. Zeon forces. Federation units. AEUG, Titans, Neo-Zeon, the entire Universal Century timeline seems to be bleeding into this Star Wars universe. And when enough of us arrive, he paused. This Clone Wars will look like a minor skirmish compared to what's coming. The Red Zaku's thrusters fired, and Char Aznable rocketed away from the confrontation with the same speed that had earned him his legendary title. Republic fighters attempted pursuit, but mobile suit acceleration in atmosphere exceeded anything Clone Wars-era craft could match. Within seconds, the Red Comet vanished into Obadiah's canyon systems. Camille Biden's Zeta Gundam remained standing, its weapons powered down but posture ready. The young pilot looked at Amuro with an expression mixing respect and curiosity. Lieutenant Amuro Ray. I read about you in history texts. The pilot who changed mobile suit warfare forever. It's an honor. History texts. Amuro repeated, his mind struggling with temporal implications. From my perspective, you're a legend. The One-Year War was 7 years ago. I was a kid when you fought Char at Abawachu. Camille's expression turned serious. But if we're both here, if the rift pulled from multiple points in the timeline, then this galaxy's about to experience the entire Universal Century compressed into whatever time we have. And given what I know about our history. He trailed off, the implications too terrible to voice. Anakin's gunship landed, and the Jedi General emerged with Obi-Wan at his side. They stared at the Zeta Gundam with expressions mixing awe and apprehension. "Another one," Obi-Wan said quietly. "How many more mobile suits are going to fall through this dimensional rift?" "Unknown," Camille replied before Amuro could answer. "But based on the energy signatures I've been tracking since I arrived, at least a dozen more. Maybe more. Some Federation. Some Zeon. Some from conflicts that haven't even happened yet from Lieutenant Ray's perspective." "This is a nightmare," Anakin muttered. "The Clone Wars alone is nearly tearing the galaxy apart. Now we're dealing with weapons and soldiers from another universe's entire military history." "Not just weapons," Amuro corrected, his Newtype senses still tracking Char's retreating presence across the moon's surface. "Ideologies. Conflicts. Old hatreds that should have stayed in our universe." Char mentioned something about the entire Universal Century timeline bleeding through. If he's right, if Titan's forces arrive, or Neo-Zeon, or any of the more extreme factions, he looked at Anakin directly. "Your Clone Wars could become the least of your problems." Rex approached, his armor scorched but the clone captain himself functional. "Sirs, with respect, we should evacuate before Separatist reinforcements arrive. Whatever's happening with these dimensional rifts, we can figure it out somewhere that isn't an active combat zone." "Agreed," Obi-Wan said. He looked at Camille. "Will you come with us? We have questions." "I have some of my own," Camille replied. "But yes. The enemy of the Separatists is probably my friend, at least temporarily." He glanced at Amuro. "Though I need to warn you, if the timeline's really fragmenting, we might see worse than Char. Much worse." As Republic forces organized evacuation, Amuro pulled Sayla and Kai aside. His crew. His friends. The people he'd sacrificed the Gundam to save. They looked exhausted, battered, but alive. "Thank you," Sayla said quietly. "For coming back. For choosing us over the mobile suit." "Always," Amuro replied. "The Gundam was Dad's dream. But your family. That matters more." Kai grinned despite everything. "So, no more mobile suit. Char's working with space terrorists. And apparently the entire Universal Century is falling into this galaxy. Any other good news?" Amuro looked at the Zeta Gundam, at the gathering Republic forces, at the smoke still rising from where the RX-78-2 had made its final stand. Somewhere out there, Char was planning his next move. Dooku was analyzing what he'd learned. And across the galaxy, more dimensional rifts were opening, pulling soldiers and machines from a war that should have been safely trapped in another universe. "We're alive," Amuro said finally. "That's good news. Everything else, we'll handle as it comes." As the evacuation ships lifted off from Obadiah's surface, Amuro stared out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. The Universal Century. Home. But that home felt impossibly distant now, not just across dimensional barriers, but across the impossible complexity of two universes' wars colliding. The Clone Wars had been changed forever. The arrival of Universal Century technology, soldiers, and conflicts would reshape everything. Strategic calculations, tactical doctrine, the very nature of warfare in this galaxy far, far away. Republic and Separatist would both seek to exploit these new variables. Jedi and Sith would attempt to control forces they didn't understand. And in the middle of it all, Amuro Ray, pilot without a mobile suit, soldier without an army, Newtype caught between two universes, would have to decide what role he'd play in the chaos to come. The White Devil's legend was just beginning. The Jedi Temple's meditation chamber overlooked Coruscant's endless cityscape, a sanctuary of quiet contemplation in a galaxy consumed by war. Amuro Ray stood at the viewport, watching speeders trace luminous paths through the twilight, his reflection ghostly against the transparisteel. Behind him, the Jedi Council had assembled, not for judgment, but for understanding. 3 weeks had passed since Obadiah. 3 weeks since the Gundam's destruction. 3 weeks of debriefing, analysis, and the dawning realization that the dimensional rift wasn't closing, it was expanding. 17 confirmed arrivals, Master Windu reported, his voice carrying the weight of new strategic calculations. 7 from the Earth Federation. 6 from Zeon forces. 4 from conflicts our analysts can't even properly categorize, AEUG, Titans, something called Neo-Zeon. Each one bringing mobile suit technology that exceeds our current military capabilities by decades. And Lieutenant Aznable? Amuro asked, though he already knew the answer. Vanished, Obi-Wan confirmed. Our intelligence suggests he's made contact with Separatist leadership. Count Dooku has been investing heavily in mobile suit research, attempting to reverse engineer the technology from battle recordings and debris. So far, unsuccessful. But it's only a matter of time. Amuro turned from the viewport, meeting the Council's collective gaze. Char won't stay allied with the Separatists permanently. He's using them for resources, but his ultimate goal has always been revenge against the Zabi family. If any of them arrived through the rift, he trailed off, the implications obvious. Char Aznable with Separatist backing, pursuing vendettas from another universe while this galaxy burned around him. What would you have us do? Master Yoda asked, his ancient eyes reflecting wisdom that transcended millennia. Stop him, we must. But how, when mobile suit combat, we do not understand. You learn, Camille Biden interjected. The young AEUG pilot had become an unofficial advisor to the Jedi Council, his knowledge of future universal century conflicts invaluable. Jedi reflexes plus force precognition equals natural Newtype abilities, maybe better. Imagine Jedi Knights piloting mobile suits. You'd revolutionize warfare in this galaxy. We're peacekeepers, Windu objected. Not weapons. Your generals leading clone armies, Camille countered. That ship already sailed. The question isn't whether the Jedi will engage with mobile suit technology, it's whether you'll do it before the Sith beat you to it. The uncomfortable silence spoke volumes. Anakin, standing at the chamber's edge, finally spoke. Amuro, you destroyed the Gundam to save your crew. I respect that. But now you're here without a mobile suit, and Char's out there with Republic forces can't counter. What's your play? Amuro had spent 3 weeks asking himself that question. The Gundam was gone. Vaporized, irreplaceable. His father's legacy, reduced to atomic particles scattered across Obadiah. But Temray had built the mobile suit for a reason, to protect people. The machine was gone, but the reason remained. I help you build new ones, Amuro said quietly. Not Gundams, I don't have the facilities or materials for that level of engineering. But basic mobile suits, using whatever technology this galaxy can provide. Hybrid designs that combine universal century principles with Star Wars manufacturing. They won't match the RX-78-2's capabilities, but they'll be enough to counter Zeon units if more arrive. You'd arm the Republic? Sayla asked. She and Kai had been granted asylum, officially listed as refugees from dimensional catastrophe. Both were still processing their new reality, trapped in an alien galaxy, in a war they didn't choose, with no clear path home. After everything you said about not blindly choosing sides. I'm not arming the Republic, Amuro corrected. I'm arming the people who'll protect civilians when more universal century soldiers fall through the rift. Because Char was right about one thing, this is just the beginning. Every major conflict from our timeline seems to be bleeding into this galaxy. And when the really dangerous ones arrive, the Titan's colony gassing, Hayman Karn's Neo-Zeon, the Jupiter fleet, this galaxy needs to be ready. Master Shak T leaned forward. You speak of atrocities. Weapons that dwarf even the Death Star. What aren't you telling us? Amuro exchanged glances with Camille. The younger pilot nodded grimly. In our timeline, the 1-year war killed half of humanity, 3 billion dead in the first month alone. The conflicts that followed, colony drops, biological weapons, mobile armors that could destroy entire fleets. If even a fraction of that technology arrives here, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Then we prepare, Windu decided. Lieutenant Ray, you'll work with Republic engineers. Design mobile suits we can manufacture. Train pilots who can counter universal sentry tactics. And if your Char Aznable makes another appearance. He will, Amuro interrupted. Char doesn't give up. He'll return with allies, better equipment, and a plan that accounts for everything he learned at Obadiah. That's how he operates. Then we'll be ready. Anakin's hand moved to his lightsaber, the gesture unconscious but telling. Next time, he won't escape. As the council meeting concluded, Amuro found himself on the temple's landing platform where the Gundam had once stood. The space felt empty, haunted by the absence of 18 meters of revolutionary engineering that had defined his identity for over a year. He was a pilot without a mobile suit. A soldier without a weapon. A legend without the machine that had created the legend. You're brooding. Ahsoka's voice came from behind. The young Padawan approached with the casual confidence of someone who'd stared down death and won. Master Anakin does that too. It's not healthy. I'm thinking, Amuro corrected. There's a difference. Not much of one. She stood beside him, looking out at Coruscant's sprawl. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Destroying the Gundam, I mean. My master taught me that people matter more than missions. You proved it. At significant cost. All meaningful choices have costs. Ahsoka's Leku twitched thoughtfully. But you saved your crew. Kept Separatists from getting technology that would have killed thousands. And you survived to fight another day. That's a win in my book. Perhaps. But survival felt hollow when Char was still free, when more rifts were opening, when the ghosts of the Universal Centuries conflicts were bleeding into this galaxy like wounds that refused to heal. The Force will guide us, Ahsoka added, sensing his doubt. And whatever comes through those rifts, we'll face it together. You, me, Master Anakin, the clones, even that intense Camille guy. We're stronger united. Amuro almost smiled. Unity. The word felt fragile, precious, impossibly naive in a galaxy tearing itself apart. But maybe that was the point. Maybe in the face of dimensional catastrophe and cascading wars, naive hope was the only weapon that mattered. Behind them, the Zeta Gundam stood in the temple's hangar, Camille's mobile suit, the only intact Universal Century machine in Republic hands. A reminder of what was possible. What was coming. What they'd have to become to survive. The Clone Wars would never be the same. The arrival of mobile suits, Newtypes, and Universal Century conflicts had shattered every strategic assumption. Republic and Separatist would adapt or perish. Jedi and Sith would incorporate these new variables or be overwhelmed by them. And somewhere in the void between universes, more rifts were opening. More soldiers falling through dimensions. More weapons, more wars, more impossible choices crystallizing in the space where two galaxies collided. Amuro Ray had survived the 1-year war by piloting the Gundam. Now he'd survived the Clone Wars by building new ones, not for glory or legend, but for the simple, desperate necessity of protecting people in a galaxy that had become infinitely more dangerous. The White Devil's story was far from over. It was only just beginning. And across the stars, in a solar sailor drifting through hyperspace, Char Aznable studied holographic schematics of Separatist mobile suit prototypes and smiled behind his golden visor. Amuro had won this round. But war wasn't decided by single battles. It was decided by who learned faster. Who adapted better. Who was willing to sacrifice more for victory. And Char Aznable had never been particularly concerned with ethical limitations. The Clone Wars had found its most dangerous variable. Neither Republic nor Separatist, neither Jedi nor Sith, but soldiers from another universe entirely, bringing with them weapons, tactics, and hatreds that would reshape everything. The galaxy far, far away would never be the same.